Welcome to a meeting of the Board of Education of Somerset Hills. Please be advised that this and all meetings of the board are open to the public and media, consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act, and an advance notice required therein has been provided. This is a meeting of the Board of Education of Somerset Hills at which formal action may be taken. The public will have an opportunity to be heard as shown on the agenda. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll do roll call. Mr. Baker?
Here.
Ms. Cooper? Here. Mr. DiGiacchino?
Here.
Mr. Mail?
Here.
Mr. McDonald?
Here.
Mrs. Santoro?
Here.
Mrs. Toder?
Here.
Ms. Virtue?
Here.
Ms. Birch?
Here.
Mrs. Lees?
Here.
Missing my thing, yes. Thank you. Yes, we have 2 letters for correspondence. One is a letter from Rick and Donna Bruton, and then we have letters from, the letter from Rick and Donna Bruton is in support of teachers, and the letters from Naomi Taylor, a student representative of the BHS Theater students, and Yoko Yamawaki, representing the parents and friends of the BHS Theater program. Okay, it's time for the report of the superintendent.
Thanks, everybody. I have a very short report. I wanted to let everybody know that QSAC came in on March 6th for our compliance check. The scores that have been reported out to the state for instruction and programming, fiscal governance, operations, and personnel ranged from a score of 85 to 100 for each of those areas. We have to surpass a score of 80, so certainly it would seem as though we passed this compliance check, and according to the county superintendent, that would deem us a high-performing district, so that is good news. I want to turn the agenda over to our middle school reporters, Ella Dermatoski and Marley Years.
Hi, I'm Marley Beers, and today as Assistant Secretary from our Student Council, I'm here to tell you about what's going on in VMS. I'm going to be talking about Wellness Week and Dance for Heart. Dance for Heart is a fundraiser that has been going on at our school for 2 years, and students and teachers perform Zumba dances to raise money for heart work. 51 students came to the event, and in total we raised $650. Ella and I both led a song together, and it was so much fun. It's my second year running a dance. Wellness Week was a big hit. On Monday, it was Mindful Monday, Tuesday was Try It Tuesday, then Workout Wednesday, Think About It Thursday, and finally, Friendly Friday Fair. On Monday, we had a meditation exercise during our 9th period of class. On Tuesday, we were open to an option of fruit, vegetable, and a choice of either hummus or guacamole. Since Wednesday was Workout Wednesday, we had a Dance for Heart after school, which I just talked about. On Think About It Thursday, there's a water station in the cafeteria. There's supposed to be Walk to School Day, but that got rescheduled because of the weather. Friendly Friday Fair was in the library. There were different organizations that came, taught us about themselves and what we could do for them for community service. Overall, Wellness Week was so much fun and a great experience for the whole school. Spring sports are starting. Softball, baseball, and track all started. Softball and baseball trials are this week and track has started practice. In addition to sports, there is a Saturday Cup second competition in Pennsylvania. Now Ella will talk about Cinderella Kids and the St. Patrick's Day Kids team.
Hi, I'm Ella, and I'm the Assistant Treasurer of the VMS Student Council. Here are some of the best recent events at VMS. The 5th and 6th grade students have the opportunity to participate in the spring musical, Cinderella Kids. The first audition was today, and there's another tomorrow. The performances will be in the beginning of May, and the show will be amazing. Just last week, the 5th and 6th graders also had the opportunity to participate in a St. Patrick's Day and March Madness themed canteen. The students had the option of going to the cafeteria, where there's a DJ and food, or going to the gym, where there were March Madness themed basketball games. We had 145 students that participated, which is the most we've had at a canteen so far. Book clubs have been going on all year at the BMS library. Attendance has been up at book clubs as well. There's a lot going on in our library. Lunch in the library is thriving. There have been a lot of informational and entertaining topics. 8th graders were able to go to a Marvel one today. There was also a local author visit and a virtual reality one as well. Although sometimes the weather may not feel like it, spring is finally here. Along with spring come BMS spring sports. As Marley said, softball and baseball are starting after the recent tryouts. In addition, BMS track started yesterday and they have their first meet on April 2nd. Thank you for listening.
Girls, hands up.
Yeah, good job. Okay.
Hello, I'm Kendall Gilvar. I'm a senior at Bernards High School and I'm the Board of Ed student representative for BHS. In February and throughout this March, the students at Bernards received a number of awards and acknowledgments and an array of extracurricular activities. Girls swimming won their sectional state championships, so congratulations to them. The Harvard Model Congress participants won a number of awards as well. For those of you who do not know what Harvard Model Congress is, it's a 4-day-long simulation of the United States Congress, where students play a number of roles in the UN, like the Security Council, the Economy Council, and district courts. Actually, 13 Bernards High School participants received recognition from this organization, and the full list is on the Bernards High School Twitter page if anybody wants to look it up. It's pretty impressive the amount of awards that our students won during that time. Most recently, on International Women's Day, which was March 8th, we received a number of awards from the College Board Female Diversity Award, which we received those awards for the AP Computer Science principal and the amount of women that we've had enrolled in that class, and there's been an increase in the past couple of years. Another remarkable accomplishment from the Bernards student body was the production of the Addams Family. I went to the musical and it was really incredible. It was the best show that I've ever seen since I got to Bernards High School, and it really felt professional. So props to all the students and the parents who made that show possible. The BHS STEM Mentoring Club met with the BES 3rd graders last month to discuss science, and they also made slime, which I'm sure was very fun for them. I talked to a couple kids who went to that event, and they said it was super rewarding for them as volunteers and for the children. The student council elections for next year are happening next week, which have been creating a lot of buzz around the halls and on social media. Please encourage your students or children to get educated about their candidates so that they can make a conscious decision come election day. In my book, it's never too early to create an educated voter. Other events that have been generating buzz are the junior and senior proms. Junior prom is in May, while senior prom is in June. And students are getting very excited about the dresses and the promposals, so that's also creating a lot of buzz. Last but not least, the Bernards High School Intergenerational Prom is on May 3rd. The Intergenerational Prom is a wonderful event put on by Mr. Kaplan and the Key Club, where elderly citizens from the surrounding areas all come to BHS to converse with, eat with, and dance with BHS students. It's a great way to foster conversation and connections with groups of people that don't normally interact. And I've heard the best reviews about this event, and it's really one of those things that you have to see, you have to be there to witness it. So on behalf of Mr. Kaplan and the Key Club, I invite all the Board of Ed members to the Intergenerational Prom to witness the fusion of the old and the new. So I have the middle school representatives are handing out. Yep, you got them. Good. Okay, great. So that's all I have for everyone this evening. Thank you so much.
So welcome. The state of New Jersey and the Department of Ed require various trainings for staff, and these trainings include HIB training, suicide prevention, and information about blood-borne pathogens. Somerset Hills School District includes each year in our opening day state-mandated workshop all of these trainings. This year, we had extended training on affirmative action for staff. Next year, the topic of suicide prevention will be explored more thoroughly with extended training. Tonight, we wanted to inform
the public and the Board of Education about the 2018-2019 focus on affirmative action, and make sure everyone knows about the policies and around affirmative action. So if you take a look up here, the Somerset School District has 3 policies related to affirmative action. These are state mandated policies and are posted on our district's website. The state of New Jersey also has a law against discrimination. The Somerset Hills School District prohibits discrimination practices in employment, retention, educational opportunity on the basis of race, creed, color, national origin, nationality, ancestry, age, sex, familiar status, marital status, domestic partnership, civil union status, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, atypical hereditary, cellular, or blood trait, genetic information, military service, mental or physical disability, perceived disability, AIDS, and HIV status. And this is what our policy states. So there are many laws that protect students, workers, and everyone. New Jersey law against discrimination. We also have Americans with Disability Act of 1990, the ADA. We have Title IX, Equal Pay Act, Section 504 of Rehabilitation Act, and New Jersey's Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights, and Employee Protection Acts, to name a few. But the basic principles of protection against discrimination are that employees and students have the right to work and study in a setting that is free of discrimination based on protected characteristics, including gender and race, and it is unlawful for discrimination for an employee to discriminate against an individual in compensation, terms, conditions, privileges of employment because of certain protected characteristics. So we have affirmative action officers in the district, and I'm the district-wide affirmative action officer. Colleen Butler is the affirmative action for the high school. Lisa Garofalo is affirmative action officer in the middle school, and April Friedman is the affirmative action officer at Bedwell. Staff members, students can file a grievance if they have a concern about affirmative action, and that can be obtained through one of the affirmative action officers. If an issue is not resolved at the building level, a formal grievance may be filed with myself, the district affirmative action officer. And affirmative action officers also make recommendations on all HID cases. So the role of the district-wide affirmative action officer, I implement the required professional development training, the state mandated training each year in the early September. This year we had 2 hours of training with Dr. Dennis, a Rutgers University professor that specializes in affirmative action and sexual harassment. Notify students and employees of grievance procedures, and Colleen Butler and myself, we presented to all the high school students this year through the English classes. I also ensure the grievances and investigation procedures are followed, and I coordinate the work of the affirmative action team. The 2 hours of affirmative action training for all staff was just completed this past Friday. So another responsibility of the affirmative action team is every 3 years we create a comprehensive equity report. I meet with the affirmative action team to begin this work, and we started our meeting just recently. The work of creating the comprehensive equity report is done every 3 years, like I said, and this report is created based on a number of review of various data. It must identify and address all discriminatory and inequitable educational and hiring policies, patterns, programs, or practices affecting facilities, programs, students, and staff. Student data is reviewed by the team. We look at dropout rates, promotion, retention, classification rates for special education, staffing practices, student discipline data, and participation in our various programs. The board is voting tonight to allow the team to begin the needs assessment, and then this will be submitted to the county in June. So the needs assessment includes the following. Board responsibility. This is the section where we look at all of our policies and practices, the resolutions that the board has adopted in order to comply with the various laws. And at this point, we are compliant with all of those as I looked at it. We also look at school and classroom practices. This section sets forth the equitable requirements for the 4 categories: curriculum, student access, guidance, and physical education athletics. We look at our employment and contract practices, outlines the basic practices that must be observed to comply with the equity requirement, and we also look at the staff development. These are the kinds of things that we need to include when we examine the classroom practices, making sure our practices are equitable and bias-free. We look at achievement gap. We look at our underrepresentation of any subgroups in our advanced classes. And we ensure that the multicultural curriculum, including African American history, Holocaust studies, genocide, is thoroughly covered in our curriculum. These are employment practices that we must include in our needs assessment, looking at how our practices look equal and bias-free. This also applies to our vendors and making sure that we have equal pay for equal work. So professional development, we've already completed our state mandated training earlier this year. All staff have been involved in 2 hours of affirmative action training. There was a presentation to students. There's also a SEED, Seeking Educational Equity and Diversity PDI, that's running again this term, so anybody that wants to sign up for that professional development. All the affirmative action officers attended Legal 1 training through the NJ Principal Supervisors Association. Next year, we will plan for the HIV and suicide prevention training. Sexual harassment is also involved in affirmative action. It's defined as unwelcome sexual advances or other verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature. This is defined as an atmosphere that interferes with the student's or worker's ability to learn or participate in the work environment or the school setting. The district has actions to reduce harassment, such as adoption of our policies, training, and compliance structures, such as having a formal grievance process. And just to recap, the Somerset Hills School District has policies and practices to identify and combat harassment and discrimination. We must all understand the negative effects of sexual harassment and discrimination, and our goal is ultimately to create a respectful learning and working environment for all. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. We had the 2019-2020 introduction of the budget. The board will be voting on submitting this budget to the county for review, and then next month we will be voting to adopt the budget. So I'm going to go through some of the highlights for you. The first part of the process is that we begin in the fall, and teachers submit requests, and facilities are looked at, and various items are reviewed, and then it goes to the principals and to the administrators to kind of put together building-based budgets and facilities budgets and technology use, and then those budgets get submitted to myself, and the superintendent and I will review them. And then we meet with each of the administrators and we review all of the items that are in their budgets and have a conversation about it. And then at that point, it starts to be reviewed also by the Finance and Facilities Committee, as well as the other committees for the pieces of the budget that are applicable within each of the committees. And each of the committees begin to review what the needs of the district are. So at this point, we're going to turn it over to Dr. Dempsey to go through some of the highlights within this budget.
Thank you, Ann. When putting the budget together, one of our primary objectives is certainly to advance the initiatives that were outlined in our strategic plan. You may remember that last November, I presented to the board and to the audience on the status of that strategic plan, and we have initiatives that are in progress and those that we are waiting to begin. We are obviously always informed by the New Jersey Student Learning Standards that guide all of our efforts. The strategic plan had 4 different areas in teaching and learning. The initiatives that we're looking to budget for next year is a continued implementation of Project Lead the Way. We will be adding that curriculum to our Intro to Engineering class. We're also looking at the art curriculum at the middle school. Susan Fisher, as the supervisor, is looking to instill more relevant, diverse projects than perhaps are there right now. And we're looking to implement benchmark assessments, at Bedwell and EMS. These will support instructional alignment to standards and outcome-based grading practices. 21st century skills included various areas. When we looked at STEM, where we are looking at new textbook adoptions in AP Biology and AP Statistics. We're also looking to embed digital citizenship topics throughout the K-8 health curriculum. And the social studies curriculum at the middle school will be embedding financial literacy standards, which is a mandated change by the state. Health and wellness was a large area that we talked about in the strategic plan, and my recommendation is that we hire an additional psychologist for the high school next year, so that is something that we are budgeting for. Jen mentioned the targeted professional development, and next year's will focus on suicide prevention. In finance and facilities, we know that there was a focus on security. We've been looking at all aspects of that. Next year, we hope to have 2 backup generators at BMS, which should be in place for the fall. We're also budgeting for something called CRG mapping, which will provide first responders with 3-dimensional mappings of all of our buildings. And we're looking at the increased security cameras. We're continuing with our rekeying, and we want to look at the entryways and the man traps that we have in place right now, so that pass-through authorization will be considered. We also have building level budgets that are going to support additional purchases of flexible seating for enhancing our spaces. Other curricular highlights include the ensuring a full complement of journalism classes at the high school. Right now, students cannot, there are not offerings for students who are interested in journalism to take a full 4 years, and now they will be. And we will continue our partnership with Teachers College Reading and Writing K-8. And on the facilities front, Bedwell is looking at some sound panels and sink vanities and sidewalk and curb at the entrance to the school for some increased ADA compliance. The high school is refurbishing an elevator, waterproofing the exterior, repairing the roof over the English wing. We've got classroom painting going on district-wide, and our facilities are going to have a new truck and a plow. So from a standpoint of our priorities, that's what we're looking for. Here's Heather with numbers.
Oh, the numbers. So overall, I'm going to jump down to the 3rd line here, which is the total general fund. Our total operating budget is increasing by 1.8%. The special revenue fund, which is our grants, is a amount of money that comes in from federal and state sources and some local sources, and whatever comes in gets spent. So there is going to be a 0% increase there, and it typically stays around that 845-207 number. There may be a little bit of variation, but for the most part, that's what we get. The debt service fund, it is going down 7.7% this year, and then it's going to even out going forward in the future years. And so our overall total expense within the budget is going up 1%. So for the local tax levy, the general fund is going up 2%. The debt service is going down 7, and so overall total taxes are going up 1.1%. So our projected enrollment, we have a little bit of declining enrollment occurring within the district at all 3 schools. Although our kindergarten numbers are a little bit up for next year. We have 90 registered right now, and I think quite a few more packets out there. So the tax levy by town, Burnsville is at 26,362,695. Our Hills at 2,016,478, and Peapack Gladstone at 6,580,107. This is calculated by looking at the assessments, for the calendar year. This is the numbers for the calendar year, and out of this, Burnsville's taxes are actually the property assessments for Burnsville and for our Hills have actually gone down a little bit, and Peapack Gladstone has gone up. So the inverse is what happens with that. So Burnsville's taxes are going up about 2.6%. Our Hills is going up about 2.4%, and Peapack Gladstone is going down 1%. And then these are the tax rates per 100 for each of the boroughs. And I've given an example here as to how to calculate your taxes. So for a $600,000 home in Peapack Gladstone times that 0.888, the school taxes for the year would be $5,328. Everybody can take their individual home value and multiply it by that rate to see what their school tax rate would be. Then when we look at this by tax levy by student, we are looking at enrollment numbers that come from the October 15th ASSA report, the application for school aid. And these are the numbers that are reported, and we divide that, the taxes for the calendar year, and then you can see what the levy per student is, and the average there is about $20,074. And then the overall pie chart here, I just want to give this for effect that salaries and benefits are our 2 largest portions here. We have 61% for the salaries, and we have about 13% for benefits. Benefits includes things, not only the health benefits, but it also includes workers' compensation, tuition reimbursement, vacation payouts, sick payouts, that kind of thing for retirees. Then we have the next largest percentage of the budget is special ed tuition and other services, which would include PT and OT and all kinds of other purchase services for students and student placements out of the district. Transportation is at about 8%. And then the other category is everything else, which would include supplies, copiers, professional development, all of the other kinds of things. That's kind of considered the discretionary portion of the budget, which is not very discretionary, but that's what it is, 8%. And so salaries and benefits equal $29.6 million, and they represent 74.9% of the general fund budget. And at this point, that's the last slide, and I can take any questions from the board at this time. Thank you. Seeing none.
Questions and comments. We very much welcome input from the public. Public comments are welcome at this time on any agenda item. Towards the end of the meeting, there is a second public forum on any topic. Please state your name and address. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. but an individual may speak a second time after all others who wish to speak on the topic have been heard. Please understand that our public forums are not structured as question and answer sessions, but are offered as opportunities to share your thoughts with the board. The board president or superintendent may address the comment in instances where the board feels there is a misunderstanding or inaccuracy. In accordance with New Jersey statute, the board will not discuss matters regarding specific personnel. Public questions and comments will be limited to 30 minutes. Thank you for your input.
Hi, my name is Donna Bruton, and I am here tonight. Full disclosure, Darcy Bruton is my daughter. I can proudly say that. And we have 4 kids that have gone K through 12 in our school system. So that's what makes me feel so very strongly about the budget and how it's impacting the teachers, both with salary and benefits. So we wrote a letter to the board, both myself and my husband, Rick Bruton, and I want to read that letter to you this evening. First of all, just from a point of credibility, we have...
Ms. Bruton?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but is this this portion of the meeting is for public comment on items on the agenda?
Okay, I was told by one of the board members that this was the time to speak. No? Oh, okay. Never mind. My mistake. I'm correspondent. Go right on. Yes, thank you. Anyway, we have 4 children who very successfully and beautifully went through this wonderful school system. So many of the teachers are, some of them are still here. They have them, Mr. Mack, Mrs. Heppes, Mrs. Forsythe, of course, Mrs. Jazz, Mr. Simino, Mr. Shostak, Mr. A. I mean, these were all such wonderful, wonderful people. We have been very involved as parents for over 30 years because our kids are, you know, the 4 of them, the last one graduated in 2005, the first one in 1999. But we've been very involved, and I think that also gives us credibility with HSA offices and the referendum. I see some of my referendum friends here tonight that used to be on the board. Sports teams, HSA, project graduation, superintendent searches and principal searches, calendar committee, strategic planning, etc. Team sports and everything. We've really been there. We've really done it. We've lived in Peapack Gladstone for over 30 years, and I know a lot of the board members. I know so many of you because our kids went to school together, and in one case they even had all 4 of my kids had Miss Virtue at Bedwell, right? Joyfully, they had Miss Virtue. We were thrilled to have her each time. But our kids went to school together with Mr. G. Chiquino. Heather and I, she has kids, and plus she went to school here. And Jamie is more of a recent person that I've gotten to know, but she's been very, very gracious and very helpful, and her kids go to school here. Mr. Baker and Mr. McDonald, Nicole, has children, and Gretchen, I will call her Gretchen, probably. I know out of respect, maybe I shouldn't, no. But she's Gretchen. Our kids went K through 12 together, played baseball, did everything together, Odyssey of the Mind, you know, everything. So we've all been around this a lot. And I know everyone's heart is in the right place and they want to do what is right. I want to read you this letter. Before that, I want to just say that my husband and I, a million years ago, a long time ago, we said, and this was when the referendum was happening. Now, we fought for this referendum for these buildings, these extensions, these additions. We really worked hard, and some people that, Donna Coons, that particularly I see here, and she was very, very involved as well. And we said at that time, because we worked on that without ever, with knowing that our children would never benefit from the PAC, would never benefit from the new gym, you know, would never benefit from any of this. but we worked hard on it. And we said, no matter where we are in this country, down the road, we would always, always, always vote yes on the school budget for the kids and for the teachers. We would not be one of these, oh no, we won't do that anymore. We would be willing to have our taxes go up for this very purpose. So the letter we wrote is, and it's from myself and my husband, Rick. Obviously, and this is to the entire Board of Education, obviously as the parents of a teacher, we are prejudiced, but we are also taxpayers in PPAC Gladstone, so we feel our opinions are valid. First, we honestly believe that our school teachers are our most important asset. While we certainly believe that the administrators from the superintendent right down to those in the schools add value, the teachers are the most valuable. In the business world, which Rick and I both came from, we were both AT&T, in the business world, the functions that interface directly with the customers are called the revenue producers. Everyone else is an expense. The analogy is that our teachers are the knowledge producers and the students are their customers. Everyone else is an expense. We as parents place the future success of our children directly in the hands of our teachers. The school board and administration must do everything in their power to support the teachers and incent them to help our children achieve maximum performance. We encourage the board and administration to offer our teachers a fair pay raise and to not change anything regarding their health benefits, their plan, or their contributions. We have many teachers who are taking home less money now than they did years ago when they started contributing to their benefits. As taxpayers whose kids got a great education in the Somerset Hills School District system, we are willing to absorb any tax increase resulting from fair treatment of our teachers. If you feel you have to seek budget cuts, maybe we have too many people who are not in the classrooms. Maybe we have to look at construction budgets. Maybe there is a surplus money somewhere that can be tapped. Maybe there are some grants that are available. Maybe use your imaginations and let's all, collectively stretch. Please do your best to support our teachers and don't lose sight of who and what is most important. Thanks for your service to our children, and thank all of you for your service to our children.
Before you start now, I'd just like to remind those members of the public that are going to speak that you have 3 minutes by board policy to speak. I was very generous with Ms. Bruton. I was. With that long a line, we're going to have to limit it to 3 minutes, okay? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Yoko Yamawaki, and you need my address. 4 West Avenue, Gladstone, New Jersey. When our letters are in correspondence, and we'd like to read our letters. And it actually kind of fits in with today's topic because all these letters are in place of the teacher.
I'm sorry, do you think it would be possible to just summarize the letter? Because the board has read the letter and we have a long line of people and I think the letter's quite long.
They are with us.
Excuse me?
These people are with me.
Everybody's not talking.
Yes. We have 3 letters to read and then we have 24 people.
You have 3 minutes.
Yes, 3 minutes each. Yes.
No, yeah.
Okay.
Let me ask you a question.
This is in place of a teacher.
I just want to,
Yes.
just trying to calculate.
Yes. Okay.
Is every person going to speak for 3
No.
minutes? Is that what we're trying to say? Okay, that's what I'm trying to
Okay. So.
do. Enough with the, I'm trying to figure this out so that we have time for everyone to speak. So we would appreciate a little bit of decorum.
Okay. So I'm here this evening with the students, families, and friends of Barnes High School Theater Program. Raise your hand if you're with me, with us. Okay. So we'd like to express our deep interest in the future of the BHS theater program. As you might be aware, Mr. Christopher Tomeno, who has built an outstanding program for the past 8 years, is leaving after this year's spring musical. We hope that everything possible will be done to find a high-quality replacement so that the program will continue at the same level of excellence, benefiting the students who are committed to theater arts at BHS, as well as the district as a whole. It goes without saying that Mr. Tomeno has been an exceptional director, but he has been much more than that to these theater students. He has listened to them as they share their insecurities, supported them as they find their voices, and helped them navigate through their high school years. These students work tirelessly and with great enthusiasm as individuals and as a group, rehearsing every day after school for many months, and are like a family. Many of these students attest that he inspired them to become who they are today. The next director for the Berners High School theater program will have a significant impact on these students, as the theater is an extremely important part of their lives. This is why we are presenting this letter of support, requesting a thorough and intensive search to find the best possible person to continue Mr. Tomeno's outstanding work. And if I might add, I think this shows teachers are much more than teachers. They do much more than teach subjects. They really touch lives. Thank you in advance for your involvement in attention to this matter.
Hi, so my name is Naomi Taylor, and I'm here to advocate in concern for the Berners High School theater program. Unfortunately, Mr. Tomeno, our current director, will be leaving us after this year's spring musical. And Mr. Tomeno has been so impactful on so many of our lives, and we're so sad to see him go. And Mr. Tomeno has had a tremendous impact on so many of our lives. He is not only knowledgeable and experienced at what he teaches, he is also honest and compassionate with his students. He openly shares with us who he is, allowing us to know him on a deeper level than any average teacher. He understands our hardships and always takes the time to talk or listen to us if we find we need to. For many of us, Mr. Tomeno has served as a role model figure that we have never had before. He also pushes us to go farther with our acting choices that we never thought we could. He has a way of expressing to us complicated acting techniques in a way that is understandable for us. We have learned so much from Mr. Tomeno and created a deep connection with him in this past year. Theater is a very important aspect, even a possible career path for many students taking part in the program at Berners. It is a source of education necessary for us that gives us an advantage when time comes for college auditions and admissions. Alumni of the program can attest to how helpful it was to have such a knowledgeable and passionate teacher. Though Mr. Tomeno can never be replaced in our hearts, it is vitally important to us that whoever takes the position of director is just as passionate and knowledgeable as he is. We appreciate your careful consideration in the hiring process, because theater is not just a game for many of us, and it will be detrimental to us if we do not have a skilled director. We believe the students of the program should have some input as to who is hired in this position. As a possibility, we would love to have a select number of devoted students from the theater program or Ms. Petrolongo, our choreographer, sitting in on interviews of possible directors. We are very passionate about having the resources we need and will put in tireless hours to achieve it if necessary. Having an experienced director with extensive knowledge of the art of acting would continue the quality program that Mr. Tomeno has developed for not only the current students, but for the future students of Berners High School theater program as well. We appreciate your careful thought and effort as to who will fill Mr. Tomeno's position as director as he leaves us. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Hi, my name is Madeline Guyett, and I just wanted to piggyback off of Naomi's thoughts because I'm a senior in the program, and so I just wanted to give my perspective from the position that I'm in. So as many of the teachers could understand from having freshman students in the high school, or maybe if you guys have children that have been through high school, coming into high school is a very terrifying experience, and if you don't have a solid group of friends, you can feel like a fish out of water for a brief period of time. And I felt like that for a really long time. And it didn't really change until I found BHS Theater. And I was introduced to Mr. T, because that was the very first time I found a group that I identified with when I began high school. Now, I could go on for hours and hours as to why theater is beneficial and why it's turned me into the person I am today, but I'm not going to bore you with my theater nerd jargon. I'm just going to keep it crisp and to the point. Knowing Mr. T and the incredible human being that he is, the dedication and passion that he has contributed to this program the past eight years is like nothing else I've ever seen in my entire life. And I firmly believe that the work that he would put in and day out for our productions is what made BHS Theater such a safe haven for me and my friends. Mr. T changed my life in ways that I could not begin to express, and I know that he's done the same for a lot of my friends. I can't stress enough how important this directing position is. And in the wake of a new beginning with the job opening up, I would like to kindly urge you to take this as seriously as you possibly can. I know that I'm a senior, and in 3 months I'll be old news, but I have friends who are going to be here for another year, another 2 years, another 3 years. There are kids 10 years down the line who are going to be stepping onto that stage and searching for their voice and their meaning and their purpose. And, having a good director, that can make or break a theater program. A good theater program is built around those who take part in it. A good show is built around whoever runs the operation. And having a loving and supportive family in that pack is built around a comforting leader figure who wants to see me and everyone around me succeed. I plan on pursuing theater in college, and this is partly due to Mr. Tomeno and the confidence he's given me the last 4 years. He gave me the experience of a lifetime, and even though he can never be replaced, it's time that we focus on giving the same respect to my peers that I was lucky enough to have the past 4 years. So, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jack Hicks. I'm a sophomore here at BHS. Today we are here concerning the future of the theater program at Bernards High School and all those affected by the impending change of a new director being put in Mr. Tomeno's position. Mr. T has been, for many of us, an extremely impactful individual in our lives. He has helped several of us at very hard times in our life and has been able to use the arts to provide an escape from the stresses of high school as well as whatever else may be occurring in our daily lives. Mr. T has done this by providing us with a space to be ourselves, to be creative, and to simply have fun doing what we love. Not only has he developed the theater program into what it is today, but he has developed us into the students, into the performers and the young adults that we are today. This is because art is a purely human concept. It exists because we have a need to express ourselves beyond the words that can come out of our mouths. For myself, as well as many others, developing a character requires very deep soul searching. And Mr. T has always been there to sit down with us after rehearsal and talk about our insecurities or our fears, or pretty much anything, to be quite frank. There is a special bond that is created between the student and the director because the director is not only a director but is also a teacher. For these reasons, I wish to stress today that the position of the director goes beyond, far beyond, its title. The new theater director will be not only a director, but a guide for the current and future students at Bernards High School in both performance and in life. Thus, I simply ask that the new director is selected not only based on their ability in the actual sphere of directing, but also on whether or not you, the school board, believe that they will be well suited to guide the students at this school properly. I'm not asking you to be omnipotent judges of morality. I'm just asking that when this decision is made, the great impact that they will have on these young performers at this school is taken into serious consideration. The quality of performance produced in this school, both because of Mr. T and the students, has been described as more professional than most high school theater programs. We strive to continue this reputation as well as continue to improve the department itself, but we can only achieve this with the combined efforts of the students, parents, and you, the administration. Thank you for your time.
I got buried on the line, sorry. I'm Terry Reinhardt. My daughter joined the theater program for the first time this year as a junior. And although I've seen shows before and stuff, and I've watched the program develop over the years, to say that the culmination of the show this season was absolutely amazing. And whoever missed it, I feel bad for you because it was incredible. And so in my 1 minute, almost 1 minute, I'm going to let you hear a small clip from one of the singers, and you can see the hard work that these students put in to this program, the hours that they put in all year round with singing, voice, dance lessons, and all that kind of stuff, because I was blown away, I tell you. So, 1 minute, I promise, okay? So.
To put that into perspective, that was a junior. She's 16 years old, Nicole Straker, and she was up on a table surrounded by a bunch of actors who looked like freaks during the Addams Family, belting her heart and soul out. And I believe that scene took about 2 weeks to block with Mr. T's help. And as you can tell, it sounded absolutely fabulous. So that's the kind of work that we do, and that's what we can continue to produce. Sorry, thank you.
I just want to say, every time I hear that, Nicole saying, and I was there for 4 years, just for 4 shows, and I think of Maggie and Nicole singing in the 4th grade talent show. But I just want to say that this board is acutely aware of the impact of that theater program. I know that Gretchen was with me there on Sunday, and we saw the video from Mr. T. I know that Jamie was there as well on Saturday. I know there's other board members who were at the show. It was off the charts good. It was the best show I've ever seen. There's amazing talent. But I think the students and the parents should know that we are deeply committed to ensuring the integrity of that program and continuing the excellence in the program as demonstrated in the last show. That's full disclosure.
Thank you.
I'm Lynn Jasterbeck, Bedwell teacher and a resident of Lernersville. I'm looking at our Board of Education, and I see that I know 6 of you personally. Most of you as parents have taught your children long ago or recently, and 2 of you were my colleagues for many years.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Is this on an item on the agenda? Are you speaking on an item on the agenda? And if you are, can you just point to what item? I'm asking the lady who's speaking, not the audience.
The letter from Mrs. Bruton, please.
Okay.
Thank you. I don't doubt that you all know how hard I work, or how dedicated I am to the Somerset Hills schools. I've been an educator here for 32 years. I, like all my fellow teachers in the audience, am not simply an educator. We're more than that. We give more every day. We work more hours beyond our school day. We provide coats to children in need. We buy small holiday gifts or extra school supplies to make learning fun. We support colleagues or sports teams or community members in need. We volunteer at evening or weekend school-sponsored events. We give more every day, far beyond our job descriptions. We all give more because that's who we are. I've never been able to afford to take the summer off. I've always worked full-time as well as tutor after school to make ends meet. The past few years I've had to try to explain to my husband and his accountant why I continue to give more, but I'm bringing home less. I thank you for your long hours of considering options to resolve our contract. I'm hoping that you will as you negotiate. Remember that we all give more. We're far more than just great educators here in the Somerset Hills schools.
Hi, my name is Linda Weltler, and I am a teacher at the high school, as well as the Somerset Hills Education Association president. I promise I will not even be anywhere near 3 minutes. I just wanted to give a clarification. Many times when people are talking in this room, public, and even inadvertently board members, they refer to Somerset Hills Education Association as the Teachers Association. And I just wanted to remind everyone, or to inform other people, that the Somerset Hills Education Association is comprised of certified staff and essential school personnel. Notice I said essential school personnel. Essential school personnel are the paraprofessionals, the secretaries, the custodians, the maintenance people. These are people without whom this school could not, or this district could not operate. So I please want us to understand that when we are talking about Shay, we are talking about everyone. Please don't just think of it as teachers, because it's more than that. And to that extent, I believe a couple of people were slightly overlooked when they were presented with retirement to the public, and I just wanted to give them a shout out one more time, and I believe that they are here this evening. Gail Moose, a paraprofessional at Bedwell. Is retiring. I don't know how many years, but I think it's a lot. 35 years, wow. How many people can say they've worked in one place for 35 years? In today's world, that's unheard of. And also Cindy Forsythe at Bedwell. I don't know how many years for Cindy, but 34. All right. So, I mean, these are the type of people that this district employs. And thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lori Ock. I'm a resident of Burnsville. I'm also entering my 20th year at Bedwell. Before I'm attacked about what I'm going to speak about, it's item 12.3, as well as the letter from Mrs. Bruton. I also was going to recognize Cindy and Gail's retirement. I know that was approved at the January 23rd meeting, but I don't think there was public recognition. I mean, both of them combined service of 70 years in this district. And I have the pleasure of working with Cindy this year, and let me tell you, not a day goes by that I don't walk out of that room thinking, I want to be like her. She's amazing, as is Gail. The other thing I wanted to address is I'm a math teacher, so I love data and I love pie charts and all that kind of stuff. I'm getting a little tired of seeing pie charts that are pointed out for the benefit of the public and the taxpayers about the amount going to the teachers and the teachers' benefits. I am the taxpayer. So are many of my colleagues and my friends out here. So this concerns us when it's always being pointed out how much money is going to the teachers. We know that. None of us go into this profession because we want to be millionaires. We go into this profession because we believe we make a difference in the lives of children, and we do. We take 3-year-old preschoolers at Bedwell and we turn them into 18-year-old college and career-ready young men and women at the high school. We work really hard, you know that, I don't have to tell you that. We use our own money to buy these kids winter jackets and goldfish crackers and pajamas and Halloween costumes. And all we're asking for is a fair contract with decent health benefits. And I'm not talking about the plan that you want to give us for health care. I don't need to remind anyone about the Mayor Health years, 2017. So all I ask is that the next time you're sitting around the negotiations table, that you think about these things, please. And I really do appreciate your service. My husband, Tom, served on the Board of Education for many years, so I know it's a thankless job. We do appreciate what you do. We just ask that you see the human side of things and what we do on a daily basis. Thanks for your time.
That's going to be a tough act to follow, but I'll give it my best. A lot of familiar faces out there, and you know where I see you all. I have 2 residences here in Burnsville, one at 30 Chestnut and one down at 3 Claremont. I'm here to talk about an event that we had down at 3 Claremont about 3 weeks or so ago, and it was called Invent Your Own Ice Cream. Before I go there, Lori stole a little bit of my thunder. I do want to thank each and every one of the board members. I've been in your seat. I know exactly the hours and time, so thank you so much for your time and dedication. Appreciate it. Okay, so just want to talk real quick about the event, the fundraiser that we had over at Bedwell and Penguin about 3 weeks or so ago. It was Invent Your Own Ice Cream Flavor. And 3 people in particular that I want to call out: Mr. Thurlow, Mrs. Boo, and Mrs. Martin. I don't know if Mrs. Martin is here tonight. From the HSA? Okay. Those 3 people were very, very strategic. I'll get to the number in just a second in terms of how much we raised, but I think you're going to be very happy with it. I was very happy. So in summary, we broke it up into 3 parts. 1, the children at Bedwell invented their own flavor. I think we had somewhere around, a little bit around 100 applicants. And I had heard down at 3 Claremont that there was quite a buzz over at Bedwell about this. In fact, I think it was too much of a buzz, and I was getting some calls from teachers. So we tried to correct that pretty quickly. So there was Invent Your Own Flavor, and then the students actually voted and chose the winners. And it was kind of neat because there were 2 groups, K-1 and then 2 through 4. The 2 through 4 children voted for the K through 1, and the K through 1 voted for the 2 through 4. And the winners are Twix and Shout. It was really good. So vanilla bean ice cream with, Twix broken up and everything. And then Ooey Gooey Rainbow Delight. And a chocolate-based ice cream. Really, really good. Okay, so that was the ice cream. We had the event. We had the children vote, and then part 3 with the secret scoopers. And some of them are out there in the audience tonight. They're the teachers. So here I'm thinking, okay, we're going to have 2 hours worth of scooping, right? 5 through 7 is what we planned. When they opened it up for the teachers to sign up for scooping, we went on overload. So we had expanded them from 5 to 9. And then we broke it out into half-hour sessions, and we had 3 scoopers per session. So you kind of get the message. It was pretty incredible. I lost complete control after the first half hour. I lost absolute complete control. I was at the register. Teachers were flying in. Teachers were flying out. Some teachers stayed. Some teachers stayed for like the entire 4 hours scooping ice cream. In fact, I offered them positions over the summer if they're eligible. Anyway, we had the secret scoopers. It was an incredible night. That night, that Thursday, it was 10 degrees. We had a line out the door, and it was snaking in the store. It was absolutely incredible. I want to do this again. Okay, in retrospect,
we raised $910, and I gave a check to the HSA. Last Tuesday, I think I stopped by and dropped off a check. It was such a great feeling, you know. Anytime I looked up and I saw it, it was a crazy buzz in the store. Something, you know, we're coming into our 10th year now, and I have seen that on maybe a few occasions, the excitement that I saw that night. So anyway, I'm going to leave you with this: the 2 secret ingredients, the children and their flavors, all their flavors. Stop by the store because they're hanging up in the store. They're really fun. In fact, I've got other school districts now coming at me, wanting to do the same thing. And then, of course, the teachers. And I say that not because of what's going on right now, but the parents showed up in droves to see their teachers behind that dipping cabinet scooping the ice cream. It was so much fun. So anyway, that was it. Thank you so much for the time, and I hope to do it again next year.
Good evening. Joe Folia, teacher of science and head of the SHAE Grievance Committee. My question tonight, Darylise, is about the agenda, so I hope it's okay. Okay. We understand that a member was told that the board wanted to talk about his performance.
Where is that on the agenda?
I'll get to that. And our question is, are you going to talk about it tonight? You requested it to be in public. Are you talking about it tonight or some other time?
Well, the employee was given a rice notice because that employee was possibly going to be discussed, and we try to be as conservative as possible so that to make sure that we don't violate anybody's rights. That individual did sign a waiver saying that he wanted the discussion to be held in public. I don't know exactly if there is going to be a discussion, because there is no item on the agenda. It depends on what discussion comes about during committee reports, which we haven't gotten to. So your answer is the answer really is I'm not really sure. I think it depends on what the conversation is here. Thank you, Kate. You're welcome.
Hi, Donna Coombs, 10 Sterling Road, Burnsville. It's regarding Donna Newton's letter. And yes, Donna and I did work on the referendum. It was a great joy to do that and see how wonderful our buildings have come out. And she is right, most of our kids did not get to enjoy the beauty and the joy of having such great school district buildings and facilities. The only part of I don't even want to say that. First, I want to thank our teachers because watching these students who came up tonight and do a presentation and articulate and be so mature and adult-like was just unbelievable. And that really is a testament to all of you in the room because it does start from kindergarten all the way through. And they are ready to go to college, very well prepared. And they are usually successful because of what you do every single day in the classroom and outside the classroom. Thus the story that was just told a few minutes ago. The only thing I disagree with Donna on in her letter and her comments was about the health benefits. I just want to remind everyone, and the pie chart did a great job, that yes, SHAE as a total covers 74% of the school budget. Our school budget by law cannot increase more than 2%. It's a tiny little amount of money that has to include everything, not just salaries and health benefits, but every other thing the district needs. So the list that Gretchen Dempsey listed of all the needs of the school district, that has to come out of that 2%. So while everyone would love to be able to support a budget that is infinitum, it's not realistic. Everyone has to give a little. And health benefits are the key issue. And while I understand, and it hurts that you have to contribute, there are ways that you can contribute less. and the board has offered in many negotiations opportunities for higher deductible, higher copay, lower premium costs, which would absolutely reduce how much you have to contribute. Those are options. They're always on the table. They're never agreed to in negotiations, but those are options. The benefit plan remains the same. That doesn't change. Your coverage will still be as good as it was before, but there are options in how you can reduce how much you need to contribute. And those are the things that need to be discussed in negotiations. Those are the things that teachers don't really know about. Because if you're a healthy person, you can afford to have a higher deductible. Chances are you're not even going to use the plan the whole year. Why not pay less? Contribute less. Your pay will be bigger. That's how it works. It's really not a hard concept, but those plans are never offered to you. Because it's never negotiated without you guys settling on only one option. Then there's waivers. A small portion of teachers get a waiver. I don't know what board decided that that was a good idea to pay people not to take health insurance. But if that was given up, that money could go towards your salary increases. Those are the places where there's money to be given in negotiations. The taxpayers, remind you, most taxpayers in this community don't even have kids in school. There's probably about 6 times as much taxpayers as there are people who have kids in school.
Don?
I have 3 minutes. Okay, I'm wrapping it up. My point is, you guys do a great job. You're always given a great contract. And all I say is, health benefits is where it needs to be fixed.
Thank you.
Good evening. Jim McCarron, Vice President of the Association and Head Negotiator. First, I just want to address the statement that Mrs. Coons just said, because she is incorrect when she states that you cannot go above the 2%. You can apply for a waiver from the state of New Jersey to go above the 2%. So that statement is incorrect. And I'm asking Dr. Dempsey, is the staff member going to be talked about tonight or not?
I think that, as Jolie said, that depends on the conversation that surrounds the...
You have already come out of private session. So if you, unless you're planning on going back into private session, you should already know that if you're going to speak about that member.
No, we don't know, and I've already answered the question.
Okay, then I have to do this, and I have to inform you that once again, you're in violation of your policy.
How are we in violation of the policy?
Because right now, if you go back to the policy on the order of events, you have supplemental matters, which I think you'll bring the staff member up after, right here on paper, after public session. So if you look at your policy, supplemental matters is before public session. So I need you to correct that.
Mr. McCarron?
Yes.
This member of SHAE opted to have any discussion that the board chooses to have it in public. It doesn't mean that there has to be a discussion. It doesn't determine where that discussion is going to occur. So I'm really not sure. I'm not going to stand here and wait. You asked a question. I answered the question.
I just want to make
I don't know
sure.
whether or not he's going to be discussing.
Okay, which is fine, but I just want to make sure that we do move the supplemental matters, which is in violation of your Board of Education policy, before public questions. You're in violation, based on the piece of paper that I hold in my hands, you're in violation of your own board policy. I will clear it up for you.
Oh, he's not going to be discussing supplemental matters.
Okay, but I'm still telling you that you're in violation of your policy.
Okay, thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
information.
Okay, anybody else have a comment? Public session is closed, and I would like to move to the approval of minutes. We need a motion to approve the minutes.
A motion to approve the minutes.
A motion to approve the minutes?
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. DiGiacchino?
Yes.
Mr. Nail?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Mrs. Tober?
Yes.
Ms. Virtue?
Yes.
Ms. Birch?
Yes.
Mrs. Lees?
Yes.
Okay, now on to finance, facilities, and operations. Bob?
Thank you. The Operations and Facilities and Finance Committee met last Tuesday and this evening for about a half hour. I'll just go over the items that we talked about. First item is ice hockey. We met with the parents of the current Somerset Hills Ice Hockey Association, and the contract that we have with Middlesex and Somerville as a co-op is ending after hockey season is over now. So we want to make sure that we are going to, whether we'll continue to fund that. And they showed us a lot of data. They have enough players. At Bernard's High, it looks like we're talking about 13 players, and the other schools are going to have 5 or 8 players in that range. The committee feels that it's very important that each school board contributes an equal amount per player. In other words, if we're going to give $1,000 a player, then Somerville and Middlesex has to do the same. So we came to an agreement, and there's a resolution on the agenda tonight that we would fund up to $1,000 a player, and at a maximum of $15,000, and their board would have to agree to the same strategy. So the application has to be in April, and then and approved by the NJSIIA for the next 2 years. So that's what we talked about. We spent a long time hashing out to get that straight. We then talked about QSAC, what the feedback was, and you've heard from Dr. Dempsey that's going very well. We talked about the location of the meeting here tonight, and we went around and around, and we came up with this beautiful room. It's better than I thought it was going to be, except the microphone's not too good, but it's hard, your voice goes in and out. We talked about the access to the Bernardsville Shopping Center, and we found out talking to the owners of the land where the emergency ramp is, which is Reichert, that they're worried about insurance, the liability. Since then, we did get a copy of the 25-page easement, and it says in there, students are not supposed to walk down that ramp, even though the gate's open. We are providing insurance right now for use of vehicles. We're indemnifying each other. We indemnify them, they indemnify us. So if we wanted to continue to go down this path, we would have to get them to agree to change the wording in the easement, because it does say students and people should not go down there. So we're going to continue to work on that. On the agenda tonight, we're approving the Sean Whalen Scholarship. This is going to be provided by Team Campbell. It's $1,000 a year. They're going to fund it for students who meet the criteria. We also talked about the district calendar. So the district calendar has 3 slight changes in it from the last time. And I think every committee has talked about it, so I'm not going to go through and talk about it again, unless somebody has a question when I get done. We talked about fundraisers. There's a fundraiser on the agenda for a bake sale for a school in Nigeria that's being sponsored by one of our teachers. We also talked about the overall fundraising in general. There are 4 policies, most people don't know there's 4 policies on fundraising, and you read them all and it's really confusing. And so the board and Dr. Dempsey we're going to work on either consolidate, make the wording better. We talked about at the last time, when do your applications have to be in, so we're going to fix the time frames on that. So that's a work in progress. We're going to try to get that done by the end of the school year. There's also a chef grant on the agenda. We want to thank chefs. There's, I think it's $8,000 they're giving to the school, and for like 4 or 5 topics. If you go to item 12, so they're giving us $8,500, and we want to thank Chef for that donation to help with curricular activities. Then we talked about, it's the budget. We talked about the budget a lot, around and around, and so you saw the presentation of the budget this evening, and I think we're happy that we're able to keep the money under 2%. It's important that the board has to plan for the next 3 years and make sure that we have enough money to fund everything for the education and the staff members. The last thing we talked about was the facilities and field use policies. And we've said that policy has been reviewed by every committee at this table, which is 4 or 5, I can't remember, anyway. And we can't agree on the wording, okay? So we're going to go around the horn again and try to get the field and the use policy finished by the end of the school year. It's critical that we get that done, okay? So in light of the conversations that we had last time about the use of the Alcott Field by the Somerset Hills Football League, we read our policy carefully, and we thought about this for a long time, and we came to the conclusion, the majority of us, that by having the field reserved last November for sports that are going to occur in August through November, we cannot get the fields fairly divided, scheduling for all our teams, boys and girls at the high school and the middle school. So,
Mr. Baker, can I just say one thing?
Yes.
I do want to take a moment to apologize to Mr. Ginty and the Somerset Hills Mountaineers. At the last meeting, I shared that we had no record of their request for field usage. And at that point in time, as far as I knew, that was a correct statement. Certainly, I would never sit here and pass along information that was not correct as far as I knew it to be. Since that time, I learned that the requests were made through our software, School Dude, and through a variety of things that did not work the way they were supposed to. The permission for those fields only went up through the principal's office in the high school. So typically those requests should go from the athletic director to the principal and then to the business administrator's office, where she has staff that has to look at it from a facilities standpoint in terms of custodians and maintenance, and also from an insurance standpoint and from a billing standpoint. And those things never happened. So I want to be fair when I say that if I were Mr. Ginty and I received the emails that he did, I would be under the impression that my request was approved. I shared that with him privately, and I share that with you publicly, because I do not want to go on the record as saying something that I have since learned to not be true. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. So that is the end of my report. And what we're going to do, I'm going to move the finance items first and then the facility items second. So I want to move finance items 1 through 17. I think that's right. Okay. And then we'll come back and we'll do the facilities, which has 2 at the moment. Okay. Any questions or comments on my report? Those topics?
Finance?
We're on the finance now, of the 17 items on finance.
Questions on that?
Okay.
Facilities.
Okay.
I'd just like to, again, reiterate and thank Chef
for their donation. I have the pleasure of being the liaison this year for Chef, and it's nice to get to go to their meetings. They work really hard to provide money to provide grants to our students and teachers, and I just like, on behalf of the board, to thank them again. Sorry, I'm pretty loud, so I don't know. But anyway, I just wanted to say, reiterate, our gratitude.
And very quickly, I would like to echo Heather's comments, thanking Chef for all they do, and I meant to say that as well, because especially with the intergenerational prom, I know they are dedicated to that, and they give a very generous donation every year, and I think we're the only group, it's the only group that gets an annual donation, and it's very, very much appreciated.
Sure.
I got this fantastic St. Patrick's Day note about a $5.4 million surplus. And I would just... So, yeah, can you hear me now? Okay. So I received a St. Patrick's Day card noting a $5.4 million surplus. And I would just ask maybe that when we present the budget, we could do a sort of a line item walkthrough of what that is, because I honestly, I gotta say, I continue to be confused by the complexity of a public school budget, and I have a degree in finance and accounting, and so if I'm having trouble, I'm sure others are having trouble. So I'm just going to ask that when we present the budget, if we could do a detailed walkthrough of what's known as a surplus and what restrictions may or may not exist on the surplus, with a focus on excess capacity.
So you want to do that at the public hearing?
Yeah, the public hearing. I'm just making ask for the public hearing.
Yes, we can do that. That's fine. Because we'll have a public hearing on the 24th. Could be in this room, it could be out on the field. I don't know. It's a nice day. We could try that. Okay. Anyway, any more questions on the 17 finance agenda items or my report? Okay.
We're going to vote on the finance items now, and then we'll get to the facilities. Yes. Okay. Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. DiGiacchino?
Yes.
Mr. Mail?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Mrs. Tover?
Yes.
Ms. Rochu?
Yes.
Ms. Birch?
Yes.
Mrs. Lees?
Yes.
Okay, going back to the facilities, there's two agenda items, and I'm going to make a motion from the floor that we should rescind the approval of the Somerset Hills football use of Alcott Field for August through November. And I'm going to explain the reason we're doing that is because we want everybody to have a chance to put their applications in for the use of the field, and to be fair. We can't have one group taking the entire field for a long period of time. So we are going to set a time. It will probably be at the end of the school year or in July. That way our athletic department can make sure that the middle school teams and all the boys and girl teams in the high school get fair use of Alcott Field. And then if there's time left over, we will then see what these other groups want to use. So that's the motion that I'm making. That will be motion number 3 under the facilities. Do I have a second?
This isn't time for questions from the public.
If it's not on the agenda, how can people speak to something within the motion?
He's just making a motion. He's making a motion now. He's allowed to make a motion.
I know he's allowed to make a motion, but can you have public comment on that motion since it wasn't something for public comment, it's only on agenda items?
You can
So,
have
we're
comments
going to make
later.
a motion here.
Lou, I think we can have comments later on that. I have a comment.
But you're going to vote on it. Well, we can't have comments after a vote. So my question is, if you're gonna have a motion that's not on the agenda, you should open it up to public question. Because it's not.
Okay, I'm going to ask my question, sorry. So, Bob, you said you want to rescind and approve. I don't think the board ever approved, did we ever approve it?
It never got to the board level, okay? It needs to get to the business office. And, but what's important, it says in our policy that we have to be fair to all our students and be equitable, that our student sports are the most important, okay? And this was a very unusual request because it occupied a huge amount of time on our fields, okay? So that's the one reason that all the committees, when we talked about it, that they felt that was the most important. That was the most important thing, okay? We're not saying that they can't use it, but we want to get everybody to put their applications in by a date, and it's not first come, first served. Everybody has to be looking at what everybody wants and decide what's fair, okay? So that's all the board wants to do at this moment, okay?
Hey, Jamie. I don't know what the Roberts Rule of Order is, but I would like to put a motion on the table to open it up for public comment, either prior to or after the open discussion on the board. So do I have a second?
Okay, can I have a second for having public comment? Okay? All in favor?
This is on the motion to open Bob's motion to the public.
Correct, this is on the motion to open it for public comment only right now.
And then the question is, does it come before or after?
Before the vote.
After the board discussion and before the vote.
Before the vote.
Okay, I'm going to motion out there. You make another, you got to complete that. Motions.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry for the confusion in the order. We need, can you please remake the motion because we have motions on top of motions. So if you could remake that motion and then we can get a second on that motion and then we can have comment on that motion before we vote.
You're going to have discuss, you're going to have board, you're going to have a motion, you're going to have a second, you're going to have board discussion, you're going to have public comment, then you vote.
All right, so we're rescinding any approval that was given at whatever level it was.
That's your motion.
That's the motion.
Do we have a second?
And we're saying that we don't, that anybody can submit their application by the end of the school year for use in the fall sports, okay, on the field, okay? We're going to have a date, and then if you want to use the field in the spring, we'll have a date for the springtime. Right?
We haven't settled on a date yet.
We haven't settled on a date.
And I need exact wording for the motion.
Okay. The Somerset Hills Board of Education is rescinding the approval for the Somerset Hills Football Association to use Alcott Field for the period from August to November, period. That's all you need. Because everything else, I'm just explaining why we're doing it, so it doesn't, you know.
We have a second for a second.
Second.
Okay, board discussion. Board discussion.
On Bob's motion.
Board discussion on Bob's motion. Sure. So let me start. As I said in the last meeting, when the initial policy was proposed to change access to the field, I feel it's important that we look at our
youth sports programs as an extension of our school community. These are students who are from our district, almost exclusively, I would say, with the nominal exception of Bedminster students, but who will be part of our district in high school. So when we talk about and think about and develop policies around access to our facilities, I think we should think of them as family, right? This is part of our family. So that's the starting point. There's some facts involved in this that I think are embarrassing for the community. And I'm looking at emails. I'm looking at an email from November 7th for May. It's got to be like the end of the season, right? And you're freaking out about next year. Like, what am I going to do? And there's a series of email exchanges about the issues that you're facing as a program and the needs that you have as a program. And then there's a series of exchanges where certain things were provided to you. That all happened by the middle of November. The very first time this board heard about what was going on here was the 14th of February. I mean, I think this board, from my perspective, has been extraordinarily sensitive to the needs of our community. Extraordinarily sensitive. And how the facts were presented the way they were, to me, is outrageous. I mean, it puts the school board in a position, in a very awkward position, right? Because you felt like you were dealing in good faith, and we're totally uninformed. Totally uninformed. And that's unacceptable in the extreme, okay? So, I, as a board member, want to echo what Gretchen said, which is I apologize, that we've been put in this position. It will go to a vote, and we'll see how that vote plays out. But I feel very strongly that these programs are part of our district. They're comprised of students who are members of their district and the families who are members and taxpayers in our district. And with respect to, prioritization, there are policies that we need to put in place in terms of prioritization. I get that. But the fact that there was exchanges in November and that no one saw fit to present this issue to the administration or the school board is unacceptable. This is a big issue for a reason, and those involved should have known to reach up to the superintendent and the board, because we want to work together. We want to work with our community programs. So that's my comment.
Well, I do want to say that I wholeheartedly concur with Tim McDonald's statement. And I do want to say that I was pretty stunned as a board member that we would not consider our students in the Somerset Hills School District first before we loan out the field. So we do need to provide proper fields for our students, number one, not number 2, 3, or wherever they are on the list. That's why we're here. We're here for the students of the Somerset Hills Board of Education.
I'd like to agree with both Tim and Jen. Sorry, I'm grabbing my chair. I was a little bit taken aback when I saw the schedule of just the amount of time that was reserved for the field for outside sports organizations when in November, when our teams hadn't been considered yet. That was my impression, and I think definitely our kids are our number one priority. Current middle school students or current high school students, that should be our priority.
I just want to say, I don't believe the intention was ever to not think about our own students. I think the times that they asked for were after our practices. Certainly if there's games can be extended beyond 6 o'clock. There are an extraordinary number of days. I get that, but I don't believe anyone was ever trying to, push our kids aside, high school students, and I agree with Tim that these are art students too, the younger kids. So I feel confident that this board is going to come up with a resolution to this that allows, we do now have 2 turf fields in the borough of Bernardsville, and I think with the 2 turf fields, we can certainly work things out so that all of our youth groups have equal access to the fields and fair access to the fields. That's one of the things we're looking for, and that all the teams should be able to practice an ample amount of time, and I hope I'm confident we can work that out.
I would just like to point out that we were told in the last board meeting by Mr. Simoneau that the Veterans Field was not safe for play. Yet I can say that girls varsity sports practiced and played on that field all in the fall. So I'm wondering why, if that field is not acceptable to the football group, why other teams are being made to play on it.
We're still in board member discussion. You can all have a chance to talk about it afterwards.
You know, I do just want to say something. I certainly hope there was no malicious intent when these fields were scheduled. However, it is the job of our administrators that do the scheduling to consider our students first and to plan for them first. It's their job.
I would echo many of the sentiments, and while I do agree that we need to work as a community and provide fields for our youth sports, I would like to echo some serious concerns with regards to booking our fields out almost a year in advance without consideration to our teams. We constantly hear of teams that would like to practice on turf because they have games on turf and they're not able to do that. Teams that have to play at the polo fields but would love to have a game on our home turf, that are high school teams that would like to have a high school game on the high school field that are not able to do that because of scheduling. And I think that our administration should listen to these and not be booking out fields a year in advance. I am also concerned about information that was provided in writing that was spoken to in a public meeting last month very differently. And I have some serious concerns with regards to that issue.
I can say that my concern is that I think a field commitment for August through November, August 12th through November 7th, is an out of the ordinary amount of time for a commitment to be made. And it just really shocks me that this did not rise to the level of a board contract. I mean, we contract out with the Y for 2 months in the summer, and there's a written contract for that, and there are provisions in that contract, there's insurance, there's a payment for that, and the board approves that. So when I got an email from the newspaper asking me when the board voted on and approved this, I had absolutely no idea what to say because I didn't know anything about it. And I think that's a really lousy way for the board to learn about a deal that was made. And in fact, Mr. Simoneau, you did say that no deal, you were not involved in any deal. And you told us that unsolicited at the last board meeting. And I believed you. And subsequent to that, it's come to light that there actually was a deal made. And that's very upsetting. Because we didn't ask you to say anything at that meeting. And you volunteered that. And we sat here and listened to you and believed you. So I find that very upsetting that staff members, A, would extend such an agreement to a group without more eyes looking on it and agreement, and that you would then misrepresent that to the board and the public. It just puts, this whole thing has put the board in a very uncomfortable position. We want to be a good neighbor to the town, but now this is in our lap. And we didn't have the option to get into this conversation. It was thrown our way. So it's upsetting. I also want to point out that the board and the administration has now spent 20-some hours discussing this. And it's not really a great use of our time. We're not talking about curriculum. This is not about student achievement. This is about one outside organization and how we can work this out. We don't have people in this room talking about curriculum. It's shocking that this is the priority of how you want us as elected members and our paid administration to spend their time going around and around trying to fix this. I think your judgment was flawed.
And I just want to clarify, because I did keep saying administration, but I am very disappointed because it was also a teacher. And that is, I just wanted to clear that up because I don't want to put the administration in the wrong light.
What bothered me is looking at one of these emails after we were told that there wasn't a commitment on behalf of the teacher. So what bothers me the most is after being told momentarily that there was no agreement on behalf of the teacher, there was no promise. It's not just a promise for that one season. It actually says, but the trade-off to have everyone on the same field for their entire career is a major plus to me. So that sounds like a commitment for a long period of time. And that should never have been done without us being involved.
And I have to say, I had some concerns about the other rooms that were being used and booked too. I know when my son was doing fencing, we did fencing, they did it late. So 6 to 7:30, that's the time they were actually practicing fencing. So I wasn't sure what build rooms, but it has that there's building rooms also being reserved in this schedule, and we don't know which ones. The detail's not here. And I was concerned about that.
About when we review the policy, I think we also need to look at when we say use of the field, is that simply the field or is that other elements of the field? I think in some of the emails we saw that possibly the weight room could be used, equipment on the field, and I think with that comes some liability, and we just need to make sure that everyone's on the same page and has the same understanding in terms of what can and cannot be used or incorporated with that agreement.
You know, this evening, we listened to teachers talk to us about the time and the effort that they put into teaching, which they do. So I will say to the teacher that I think misrepresented information to the board, that kids look to you as role models too. And along with that goes complete honesty. So I personally was disappointed in what transpired in your statement at the last board meeting.
You put me in a really uncomfortable position.
I just want to echo that you put me in a really uncomfortable position because I think I'm a pretty open and honest person who talks to anybody who approaches me. And I, too, I believed everything you said. And now I have reason to perhaps not believe that as fully.
I just want to reiterate the fact that I feel like, we've gotten ourselves in a very awkward position that we didn't need to. Open dialogue is always the answer. And at the beginning of November, when you sought out the solution, would have been a great time to engage on this topic. And unfortunately, the way things transpired put everybody in an awkward position. right? 3 months went by, we couldn't have an open dialogue. So nothing has changed, at least from my perspective, in terms of how we want to interact with our youth programs. These are our children, this is who we interact with, we want to encourage this. What happened internally is a different issue. Okay, what happened in our meeting was a different issue. Okay, we want to be helpful, we want to be supportive, we want to be encouraging, and we want to act by a set of policies that respects our school system and all the students in it, K to 12. So I just want to again apologize for the awkwardness of where we are right now. And I hope, by the way, that, I don't know if there's anybody here from the town, but for goodness sake, this is an issue largely of their making, right? I mean, people were breaking their arms, patting themselves on the back when that field was done. And why it was done with flaws and not to specs. I mean, I hope the meetings are huge, that their turnout down there is huge, right? Because that's why we're having this conversation. We're having this conversation for 2 reasons. Number 1 is the field was built and it was flawed. And number 2 is there was a process that was followed internally that was not disclosed to the board. Neither of those things are the responsibility of the volunteers who sit around this table, but we're dealing with it and we'll do it to the best of our abilities. And I apologize for being in this situation, and we'll work through it. And we'll work through it in a way that works for the program, and it works for the students, and it works for the school district.
Any other comments from the board? Okay, I just want to reiterate that I feel that I was elected to do the best things for the students in this district. And to me, we need to look out for them. If people who are supposed to be looking out for them don't seem to be looking out for them, and that's all students, it's girls, it's boys. And if we were to, in my opinion, go through with this season for the football team, that number 1 shuts down all those hours that are listed on this email that were requested. That shuts that down for every other sports organization that may come to us and want those fields for a day here, a day there. They're booked. And so what do we say to girls field hockey or FC Berna soccer? You know, basically the way this was done was cutting the line, grabbing space, and hogging it from all other people who should be equally entitled to that time. And we just had a presentation on affirmative action in this room 2 hours ago.
Can I answer this, please?
No, your public comment is not time. And please let me finish. Our superintendent is charged with making sure that female athletes and male athletes all get the same opportunities. And that's something she wouldn't even be able to sign off on because she hasn't seen the sports schedule yet. So I want to just remind everybody that it certainly makes sense to have our sports and practice schedules set for a season before the district allows other people to come in and take space on our fields. Okay, we can have public comment.
Sarah Pellegrino, I'm here representing Grievance for Shea. First, I'd like to say that obviously now I'm here representing John Cimino. He chose a public hearing, not public criticism, and that's the point of the Bryce letter. I want to keep that in mind as we continue. Nowhere ever did he ever in any of those emails give approval for use of the field. For those of us who don't know, and I think most of us are unaware, how does the school due process work?
I can speak to the way the school due process is. I can speak to the way the school due process is supposed to work, which is that a request is put in generally at the building level, although there are some outside groups that have accounts and can do that for themselves. It is then, and I'll talk about high school specifically. The request is put in by Amy Malzone in Mr. Hoppy's office. It then goes to Dr. Nigel for his approval. He's looking primarily for conflicts that would take place simultaneously, not necessarily in the same space, but at the same time in the high school. It is then supposed to go to Heather's office so that Doug Lucas can look at it from that facilities aspect and Ellen Brown can look at it from the billing insurance aspect. What happened in this specific situation is that it went from Mr. Hoppy's office where it was input to Dr. Nigel and no further. So when Heather first looked for it, when I kind of said, Jamie called me, what's going on? I looked out to Heather, what do you see? She said, I don't see anything. So, again, I feel responsible for that. It did not work the way it was supposed to. I regret saying things that were not true. And certainly, I don't want to ever shirk my responsibility for the fact that we have internal mechanisms that are designed to work one way, and they should work that way. So
So it was approved by Scott, and then at that point, it's supposed to go to Alcott, correct?
Yes.
And it did not in this case.
correct.
So at what point do the emails of confirmation get sent out?
So the email confirmation is supposed to get sent out at that last piece of the puzzle. So there, at every step along the way, a user would indicate that they were approving this request, but it is not until you activate that request that that approval email is generated to the original source.
Right.
In this case, the Scott's button, if you will, said activate, which is what he did, and that is what generated the approval emails to Mr. Ginty.
Gotcha. So if that mistake had been made, then all of the approvals would have gone to the Alcott level, correct?
That is my belief, yes.
So that is based on what youth football had done the previous year. So they knew that that's how it had to be done when they used the turf last year. So the Board of Ed would have been aware in November, on November 29th, when
Last year, my understanding is that request came in mid-season. Again, I'm relatively removed from this. And so it came to my attention when I got a phone call on a Sunday morning about noise that was proximal to the neighborhood.
The 2018 season. Correct. So my point is, if Dr. Nigel had not hit the mistaken button, right?
Well, I don't think it was a mistake on his end. I think that was the button that he had to hit.
Okay, so if there wasn't a flaw in the system, then on November 29th, when the emails were sent that it was activated and approved, it stopped at that level. If there was not a flaw in the system, then it would have continued on through the school due process, at which point you would have all been aware of that. So I want to know how by them following the proper channels, how that puts Mr. Simino at fault for making a deal. So you're referencing emails where he made a deal. A deal is where
there are communications that were shared to me by the
board, yes. Okay. So if the word deal was used, a deal is where two or more parties benefit. I want you to think about how he benefits from this. He doesn't. He doesn't benefit from this. He's trying to create a community feel. He's trying to communicate between programs. He's trying to help our youth, which are going to be here. And at no point did anybody say, and there's several members of the board that said, our teams, our high school teams have to come first. Absolutely, nobody ever said that you should come first. In fact, through that communication email, they have said that they will use separate fields if our teams are still using the turf. They will go down below to the lower field. So at no time were they going to be given a priority. I understand that communication didn't work the way it was supposed to, but at no point was a deal ever made. I would love to see in writing where a deal was made. John gave helpful advice to Mr. Ginty to say, listen, keep the noise down. If there are issues, the Board of Ed possibly could charge you for cleanup, for custodial fees. You have to bring your own food.
There is language in the email that was shared with me that would indicate that there was a sentiment that we were working together to build toward a common goal.
And that's absolutely awesome.
The whole school district.
And that is something that I think every single one of you would love to do, is to support our kids, and that's what your job is, and that's what our job is. So yes, there is, absolutely. And how is that a fault? How is that a fault of his?
I don't know that we entered this conversation, and I'm certainly not the only one who's up here to speak, but in ricing, if you will, Mr. Simino, certainly I did not do that with an intent to say there was a fault. I did that because I want to protect him, and I knew that the board wanted to have this conversation, as they have to, all together.
Right.
So while there were conversations in committees, those were pieces of this board, and they need to come to some consensus about how they want to move forward.
Correct, and I'm saying you plural, I'm not saying you personally. But the way that you are saying that he lied, that's you again plural, some of you were saying he lied last time. How? How? He did not. He has no authority. He's a coach and a teacher. He has no authority. He guided Mr. Ginty through a process, and because the process was flawed, suddenly it's his fault. He guided him through a process, and he knew the process from doing it previous years.
So, Ms. Falzarano, this is this is public comment. You got 3 minutes. I took time away from because of Ms. Dr. Dempsey speaking.
I wasn't speaking the whole time.
But, no, I took that time away. But I just want to clarify that you made a statement earlier that it was a public discussion, not public criticism. That is not correct. And the reason why that's not correct is because Mr. Simino was given a rice notice to notify him that the board was going to be discussing him in closed session. He chose to have that discussion in open session.
Right.
The only thing that means is that whatever would have been discussed in closed session gets discussed in front of the public. Okay? And your characterization that it's public criticism, it is not public criticism. It happens to be in public. It was his choosing.
Correct. I think some of the things that were said were critical in field.
Yes, it is critical, but it is not public criticism the way that it would be interpreted under your collective bargaining agreement.
Maybe revisit it. So, are you closing? There is nothing, there is no policy that he has broken. There is no deal that he made. He has no authority to do that. And most certainly, because of that, he did not lie. He is one of the most well-respected coaches this school has. He is respected by the coaches, the teachers, the community, the players, and most importantly, the parents. And as a parent, I know what huge, huge influences coaches can be to my children. And he is a role model of that.
Hello, board. Thanks, Sarah. Since I started all this, I'm Ned Ginty. Okay, so let me be very clear. Besides the fact that I love my children, I love football, and I love that our children love football. And I love John, who has nurtured and taught my kids, 3 of them that are in the program. My daughter, one of only 1 girl in the entire program, okay, and 2 sons. Here's the intent. So please listen clearly. We reserved all of those dates, or I should say we intended to, for one reason and one reason only. To give us backup dates when the high school needed those fields. So when we would get bumped, there was at least another day, maybe 2, that we could use. So it is very clear, I want it on the record, that the high school comes first. It was always communicated to us by John, by Mike Hoppy. High school comes first. Why were all those dates used? Because we don't know when those high school sports would be. They could be Monday, Tuesday, all the way through Friday. So we had those. Maybe we only have 1 day of practice. But the high school comes first and foremost. There was no malintent. The reason why we did it was because last year, if you're not aware, we weren't told until the middle of August, that we could not use the Veterans Field because it was not NJSIA approved, based on the fact that the fencing was not irregulated 15 feet from the back of the end zone. It was much less than that. There are other issues, we can talk about that in another forum, okay? But the point is, there are two things that are going on here, okay, in terms of this process. John had nothing to do with a deal. There was no deal. That was somebody else's language. This was John caring about as Tim was saying, the situation we were put in as a youth football program and trying to help us. And in the email, it guides us specifically. Go talk to the athletic department and use the same process that you used before in 2017, which through school duty, which we used in September, and I have those emails too, where I got the approval, the same process. Nobody said to me, go to the Board of Ed. If somebody said to me to go to the Board of Ed, of course I'm going to go to the Board of Ed. But I followed the same process that was used. So there's nothing that John did other than say to me, I really want to have collaboration. I want synergy. I use the word partnership, okay? Sorry if I didn't use, I wasn't an English major, okay? Synergies. Using, common education, skill, facility, safety. Safety and skill. Those are the two most important developmental priorities for football. And John is providing that for us. Now, it can be as simple as I'm coming to your practices. So when I say no, and when I was saying no cost, think about that. John's not going to charge us to come to our field or to his field to learn how to block a little better. John's not going to charge us to access with his supervision or anybody else's supervision or rules that you want to provide that say you can use this but under these terms. Because people were referencing an email that I sent to the youth football parents. That's who it was intended. It wasn't an operating agreement, a policy statement, anything. It was posted on our website. And the reason why it was posted on our website was really simple. There are parents that didn't have updated emails and they bounced back. That's it. So it wasn't some public statement or public forum. Okay? This was an easy and simple solution. Mr. Baker, you couldn't have said it better. Okay? If other people need to use that field, we're bumped. No problem. But from 6 o'clock until 7:30 at night, we need a place that is safe for our kids. We need lights. We'll have the lights face the school. If you tell us the lights can only be on for a half an hour, good. If you say that you have to bump every single day because we've got some rescheduling games for whatever sport, we'll do it. We just want to have a safe experience for our kids because we don't have that right now. It wasn't the malintent of the town, so I want that on record as well. We're not up here to say the town did something malicious. We're going to work through it. I'm on the field committee with Mary Jane Canos. Okay? I'm working with her and everyone else to figure out how we can solve this problem. Okay? I'll wrap it up. We are the feeder program for this community. We have little kids, boys and girls. All of our coaches are working parents. They cannot get home until 6 o'clock. And that's generally when the high school games and practices are over. But if they have to go to 7:30, 8 o'clock, guess what? We don't practice that day. If somebody tells us 5 minutes before practice starts, sorry, Ned, fine. We're guests. That's what we are. We're guests in your house, okay? And we will act like guests, okay? So please, you want to blame, don't blame John. Don't blame Mike, okay? We went through a process that we saw as the protocol, and we followed it. And if somebody says, well, it took 3 or 4 months for anybody to find out, but it also took 3 or 4 months for me to find out that wasn't the right way of doing it. Or, I'm sorry, there was a flaw in the system. If somebody came to me right away, we would have said, okay, let's go through it. So bottom line is, the high school comes first, okay? From 6 o'clock to 7:30, we're asking to use the field for a very simple reason, okay? It's safety and skill development. We are the only sport using the turf field, Veterans Field, that has to deal with diminishing sunlight from the day we start practice, okay? From mid-September, late September onward, the light goes down, we need some lights to play in a safe environment for our kids. There are other reasons why there's great synergies with our two programs that are safety, having shelter from lightning storms or other things like that. And we can talk about this at another time. But the point is that we can't access a field that will be safe for our kids until essentially it turns dark. And the high school has the facilities that we could use to help us provide the best safe environment for our kids, and also with some cost savings, because the last 2 years we have not had a home field, which meaningfully decreases our ability to raise revenue for fundraising. Now we have to pay fees. We never had to pay fees before. Okay? We didn't have to worry about lack of a home field for signage for fundraising. Okay? We never had to worry about a snack shack for years because we had one. Now we don't, because that building isn't allowed to be used for it, so we don't have revenue. And our costs have gone up, and our safety is at risk for our kids. That's why John, who heard this, was like, I would love for this idea to happen, and that's what's happened here. I'd love for this to happen, but you got to follow this procedure. That's where John ends, and that's where the school dude and the athletic department begins, and that's what we follow. John had guidance and aspiration, love for our kids, but that's where it stopped. No deal, no promises, just, I'd love for this to happen, but you got to follow through with this. And this last thing I would say was that Mike was very specific with me, and so was John. Anytime the high school needs it, we're bumping you. That is where it's going to be. That's where we will always follow. That's all I have to say. John, thank you for everything you've done for my kids.
Ned spoke so beautifully, but I just came up to say, because I've watched it from the beginning, mistakes being made in the town field. And now to see people being hurt by the situation, a teacher who's just trying to help, and Ned, like, who's working his butt off to try and get a field for the kids to play on. There was no harm meant by any of this, and to see anyone stressing or upset or feel like their job is in jeopardy for any of this to be happening is crazy. It's ludicrous. There was no one trying to hurt the high school kids. It was all intended that because the football team had no place to play, and they were just looking for a solution, and they tried to follow the process, and someone trying, out of the goodness of their heart, trying to help someone being thrown under the bus is like, it's kind of hard to watch. And for the board attorney to jump in and tell Ms. Balzerano that what she said, that she shouldn't say that, I don't understand. I'm an attorney. I work for a board. I don't understand why you're giving your opinion. I don't understand that. And there's 2 members that sit on the board that probably should recuse themselves when it comes to discussions regarding the field. And in the future, I think the board attorney should probably consider that. It's just upsetting. This was all for a good intent. No one meant to hurt anyone. And to see someone else's mistake now hurting people that were just caring and trying to care about the town and the kids, and to see what's going on, it's ridiculous. And just, I understand that you're taken back by the situation, but if you look at what happened, no one meant anything harmful by it. It was an accident. It was a misunderstanding. And to be like, I understand being taken back, but also look where it happened. There was no intent to not have anyone know the secret of suddenly all these people are playing football there. It had already happened the year before. The football team was playing on the high school field. So of course the process was going to be followed, or that's what we assumed. So I just feel like calling people out, it's a little embarrassing and it's upsetting. So
Here, here. Here, here.
I'm going to address the public criticism part that I know you disagree with, Darlise, and here's the difference. I know the Board of Education is not used to doing something like this in public session, but it's a difference between he and you. In private session, when you would talk about him, it would be he did this, or he said this, or this is what he said. But when the Board of Education looks at the person in the audience and addresses him with the you, which is on camera, that means you are speaking directly to him. And that's public criticism. So the difference is, when it's he said this, and you speak this way, that's not public criticism. But when you look him in the face and say, I felt that you did this, that's public criticism.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. disagree with you also, but that's okay. And just again, just to be clear, the only reason why any of this is being discussed in public is because Mr. Semino, I apologize, because Mr. Semino wanted it discussed in public. It was not the board's choice to do that.
See why? But you shouldn't be assaulting his character, because every Friday night, he leads 53.
My name's Noel Berg. I'm from PPAC Gladstone. I want to thank the board for all its work tonight. I know that it's difficult to have the positions that you do. I have a daughter. She's on the varsity soccer team. I support your motion very much, and the reason why I do is because based on everything I just heard from the football people, I think that the motion is that this is clearly needed. There needs to be a change so that there's more communication. And I think my guess is, I'm not sure, but my guess is that Mr. Ginty provided you with information while he spoke that you may not have been aware of, and that's the whole point. I think the fact that he's saying that it was made very clear that that the high school, if something comes up, that they would be bumped. I think that's really important. And so I think the motion is well-founded and it should be passed. I did listen to the board meeting, the last board meeting. I wasn't here. I did hear what was said about the field over at Polo, the turf that's, I guess, run by Bernardsville. My daughter practices there and plays every game there. She never played on the Olcott turf, not once. And so I'm wondering, and it's not a question, I'm just throwing it out, that if there are safety issues associated with that turf, then I think we as a community should be concerned for everybody who's playing on the turf. And so that should be taken into account when the school decides who's playing at Olcott Field. And I do know that perhaps there's times it may have, and I don't think there was any malintent at all. I know Mike Hoppy very well. He's my neighbor. He's a good friend. I don't think there was any malintent at all. But I do think that all of these things need to be considered because right now the varsity soccer girls, they typically play at 4 p.m. And maybe in deference to them, they can switch the schedule around so that they're playing at 6 p.m. On Olcott Field. I don't know, but I think all of these things need to be considered, and all of these different communities, including FC Berna, including the Mountaineers football, and everybody else, that should all be considered when you're looking at the town fields. So I did watch the video. I leave it to the board and the faculty and the administration to think and talk about the statements that were made and the emails. I haven't seen the emails, but I do think that all of this is ripe for change, and the motion should be passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, sorry, so my name is Gina McCready. I live in Far Hills, and in full disclosure, I am the treasurer of the Somerset Hills Youth Football League. So I just want to make sure that everybody is really clear on the fact that why we cannot, as the Youth Football League, use the field and who can't. So I don't know anything about soccer, lacrosse, field hockey. I'm sure that they are fine to play there if they are playing there. The NJSIA is for football. The fencing has to be 15 yards or feet, help me, thank you, feet beyond the end zone. And when those kids are running full speed into the end zone, when they make a touchdown, they can't run into the fence and flip over it. So field hockey, tackle, even the flag teams would be fine playing on that field. It's specifically for tackle for the older children, and this is why the Youth Football League can't play there. The other thing I want to really mention is everybody kept talking about the district children. I understand that you guys are the Board of Education, you're looking out for the schools in this district. But the children that are playing on these leagues are in this district. Bedwell does not have sports. So these youth football, youth soccer, any youth sports, we're paying for our children to play. We're volunteering our time. I can't even tell you how many hours on Ned's own time that he has spent on this ridiculousness because of what happened with the field from the county and the mayor in the town. So I'm sorry that you guys are put in this situation. We're sorry we're put in this situation. And poor John has been only trying to help. And he hears Ned's plight. He hears everybody's trying to just figure out what can we do. And everyone who's trying to help with a good heart is offering up potential solutions and things that we can try. And that's really it. But these children that are in these youth programs are not from other towns. They are from our town and they attend our schools. And they also pay our taxes. So please, please give that consideration along with the fact that, again, there was no malintent. I can't tell you how many even hours I've spent on the phone just talking to Ned about everything that's going on. And everyone has good intentions. Everyone has good intentions. And there was no deal, and it was very clear to even me, and I've never even seen the emails, that Bernard's High School, Bernard's Middle School always get priority. Always. That was very clear in any discussions that were ever happening. And I was hearing it secondhand from Ned. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Crooms, Penn Sterling Road, Jardinsville. Just really quickly, I agree. These kids are feeder teams. That's not a problem. I totally understand. But they are club sports. And they generally book their fields through the rec department. So I'm not really sure how that rule changed, because club sports generally did that. They also pay fees for the field, and then rec coordinates with the school district, and they come up with a plan on how the fields are used. And so that would have eliminated some of what happened in even the process, and hopefully you guys can go back to that process, because the school district doesn't pay anyone enough to coordinate fields for rec. With that said, I think club sports need to pay for the fields if they're going to use it, because the more use on the field means more wear and tear, which means at some point you guys are going to have to replace the field sooner than later. There should probably be an account set up so that that money goes into an account that's there to replace the fields when we need to. Again, back to your budget, 2% cap. And you need to fully, you need to fully fund all of the sports that you don't fully fund now before you go ahead and fund anything related to club sports. We have lots of sports at the high school that parents pay a lot of money out of pocket just to do so that their kids can play competitively for their college education, college admissions. So there's a few things that have to be a little bit of a priority before club sports gets to encroach on that. Not saying that they shouldn't have some time on the field, but I think everything should be prioritized. Title I is extremely important. Our girls don't get to play on those fields as much as the boys do. Some of the female coaches don't get to play on those fields as much as the male coaches. So I think there needs to be some equity in those things, and there needs some prioritization. So no one's against club sports. They are feeder teams. We love them. But again, and you guys all said it, and affirmative action was the first thing you guys spoke about. So you do have to remember no discrimination right in your district before you start bringing outside things in. That's it. Thank you.
To address Mrs. Coons, the girls' soccer and another soccer parent that came up, the girls' team has chosen to play all their games. Speak to the coach. I'm the head field hockey coach. I'm in a very close relationship with all the head coaches here. Boys do not play because they prefer a wider field. The girls have said that that's perfectly acceptable by the other head coaches. Speak with Chris Habermas then.
The coach did, not the girl. The coach.
Can I clarify something, please? Yes, sir.
Lynn Waltler, yada, 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 yada. I know it's getting late. I'll try to be very quick. Just as Mrs. Coons said, I just want to remind everybody
2%, but can have a waiver to go more. But I just want to bring it back to what was originally talked about on behalf of my SHE member, and that is that this member followed the process, advised to go through school duty, sent it to the athletic director. The athletic director sent it to the principal. That's where it didn't go any further. So that really does not reflect on our member, because the member advised for the process to follow. I just want to bring it back to that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lou Palmer. I just want to remind everybody that that was a gift to the district also. Most of that field was paid by donations from people in the communities. So I just want to make the board aware of that, if they weren't, that was a donation to the community from a lot of taxpayers and a lot of community members, with the expectations, I think, of having all the children in the district play in that field. And to Donna's point about putting money aside for the replacement, I think, and maybe Bob would know, that we don't have there wasn't a specific line item or fund to put it in, but I think we were trying to get the capital budget up so that when that replacement did come, there would be enough money in capital budget to do that. And I think the board was doing that previously for the expectations of a replacement. So I just want to remind the board about that.
I'm going to look at this email. That's fine. There's a lot going on here tonight, and there obviously is a lot of emotion, and I am sure that everybody sitting here has the right thing in their mind that they feel like they should do with the children that they are involved with. The reason why we're talking about this is because last week, Mr. Simino had said something that we all believe to be true. Now, I just want to read you an email, and this might explain things to you. It's from...
You being the public, right?
Pardon me?
You being the public. You being
You
the public. Is the public.
Yes.
You're not directing it to Mr. Simino.
Okay. This email is from Mr. Simino, and it is to Ned Ginty. And it says, I met with Mr. Hoppy, our athletic director, today and explained to him your plight. You guys are clear to use the turf next summer as your home field and practice facility. We can work towards sharing field equipment and make Olcott the home for all of our football teams in the future. So, you know, as a board, when we see the comment, we didn't ask any comments to be made.
Any other emails to clarify that statement seems like
It's
any other things where any other emails we send.
Can't hear a thing. I can't hear a thing.
She can't hear you. You have to speak into the microphone.
Okay, so this is not, again, I don't want to be difficult for everyone out there. I know lawyers are difficult, but this is not a town hall meeting over this email situation. There was a motion that was made. There was board comment. Let me finish. There was board comment. There was an opportunity for the public to have comments. And this board member is reading an email. So comments from back and forth. If the board wants to reopen public comment, that's up to you. But we're not going to have...
Yeah, the context is it's my email, okay? It's my email. So please, talk to me. I wrote it. I know what the intent is. No, ma'am, John came to our board meeting in December and laid out all the details, as well as Mike, about the restrictions in usage, etc. So even if he said you're cleared, we had conversations that said you must go through this process. There was nothing that John could do in that email that would say you're done. You're not confirmed, not approved, cleared. What John's intent was for cleared was to go through the process. It wasn't that you're done. And we went through the process. So I'm sorry if it didn't interpret the right way or it wasn't written as clearly as people would want, but just give me a call and ask me. You know, we're 1 degree of separation from each other, and all you have to do is say, "Now, what did you mean by that?" You know, don't read the post on a website and come to your own conclusions. Just give me a call and say, "What did you mean? What other steps were taken? What else was said?" And we would have cleared this up a long time ago, and that's why I just want to clear it up once and again. In terms of final, John gave us some guidance on steps to take. We took that guidance, then he was removed, we went right to school dude, and we were told that was the right process because we followed it the previous year in September of 2017 and also got approvals. So there was nothing for me to believe that anything was done incorrect because December went by, January went by, February went by, then people said, actually there was a glitch. Fine. So let's just all get past this process, which is the high school comes first. We will be bumped whenever people want us to be bumped because they come first. And if there is extra time for us to use it, we would really appreciate the ability to use the field because of the issues that are going on with Veterans Field. It's as simple as that. Okay? We're willing to do whatever you want, put whatever restrictions you want on it because the field itself can't be used the way we would ideally want it to for the safety of our kids. So I'm sorry if there was any kind of misunderstanding or lack of clarity or poor writing or whatever, but that's why I'm here today to clarify all of it.
And I don't think anyone wants to relitigate anything. I think we have two issues here that need to be addressed. I just want to make it clear. My frustration is with the process. That's what I've talked about as a process, and we shouldn't be here because of the process. So we have two issues that we have to address. One is the commitment that's been made by school dude, the mysterious school dude, but there's email receipts that were received on the 29th of November from school dude. Okay, we have that issue, and there's a motion on the, there's a resolution on the table. And then there's a process and policy issue that this board has to deal with. Obviously, we've got some challenges, right? It shouldn't go this way. This all gets fixed with communication. From day one, it should be open communication. We want to be partners. It should all be open communication. Across the board, all these things get resolved with open communication. So, yes, I forget who said it earlier, but the facts continue to be disclosed. It's not the way it should be. We should be able to sit down, have a reasonable conversation, and figure it out. And that's what we'll do. But we have two issues to address. One is what we do with the commitment that's already been made. The second is to set of policy initiatives that people will have different views on. But what's important is these kids are from our district, and they're our students, and these programs might as well be our own.
So, to state the line of communication, I want to know before this was brought up, before you saw this email, right, that you were saying, okay. So in light of the communication conversation that we were just having, as you saw this email, you collectively, what information did you communicate with John to find out the true meaning of that?
Pause here. This is not a hearing. I know that you're a representative of the Somerset Hills Education Association, and I understand that. But again, it's not a hearing. This is not a Donaldson hearing where you have to represent him. There's no representation of him for discipline. It was a discussion that was supposed to be had in closed session because let me finish. Supposed to be in closed session to protect his personnel rights. He chose not to have that, which is within his right, absolutely correct, and that's why the discussion is here. So we're not going to have this back and forth questioning the board members, nor board members questioning the public either. We really do need to have a little bit more formality. Correct, well, fine, then. So if you have a comment, make your comment so that we can move on, please.
I'm going to comment on what you just said, so then we're going to stop reading the email.
Yes, we're not going to read any more.
Thank you.
Okay?
Hi, I'm Phyllis DiStefano. I'm a kindergarten teacher at Bedwell. I'm not a taxpayer in this town, but we just had a staff development about respect. And I've seen a lot of disrespect both ways. Especially, I'm sorry, you've been very disrespectful to a lot of these taxpayers and people who are taxpayers in this town. And I gotta be honest with you, if this was my town, I'd be really upset. And I mean, you're asking us to be respectful to students and all, and I think a lot of these people here are not respectful also. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you for your comment.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ed Caldwell. I live in Burnsville. I have been the volunteer wrestling coordinator for the last 10 years. And I have been scheduling time in the wrestling room for the last 10 years. I've been scheduling time in the wrestling room and in the gyms and in the cafeterias for the last 10 years. I have never heard anything from the Board of Education that it was not allowed. So do you guys know that I'm scheduling? So something's at fault.
Ed, you must be a bad human being, though. Why did you do that?
I think it's been identified up here that there were problems with the process.
You're calling out the character of Coach Semino, not the process. You're calling out the character of a human being.
I've been volunteer for 10 years, and I know some of your faces, but you don't know me. But I've been scheduling time in this high school for the last 10 years. My point is that if you don't know what's going on in your schools by the school dude, then who's at fault?
Janice O'Brien, I live in Burnsville, I'm also a teacher here. To go off Mr. Caldwell's wrestling, I just went down to the States in Atlantic City, and I was actually brought to tears because you brought up affirmative action. It was the first female state wrestling championship, and I watched history in the making, and it brought me to tears, it really did. But I also have 3 daughters that went through this school. I don't know if it's right for me to say I take offense to the affirmative action part being brought up, because I have never heard from one of my daughters who have played every female sport in the school, I think, that they feel they haven't gotten enough field time or court time or anything. In fact, I have been at that turf field this week and the week after alone watching lacrosse, girls lacrosse out there. So I have an issue with that hot button issue. Also, as a taxpayer, my son went through Pop Warner here. I would have been thrilled if I could have driven him to this turf field. But we had an agreement with the neighbors, we couldn't use it. So all the Pop Warner money, and my son and my husband who coached drove to Ridge High School. His entire time, he played from kindergarten through 8th grade. So I love the fact that they're trying to do it, because it's about time. My last point is, I just want to know why this board is so quick to think a staff member would do something that would hurt any of the kids in this school district. I mean, I feel like there was a conclusion jumped to that he made some backroom deal, and that it was to get you, and now I feel like we're trying to get him. And I think it's just a huge misunderstanding and a fault with School Dude. And to be quite honest with you, I don't know how to use School Dude. I've tried so many times and I need help every time. And I've been in this district 12 years. So let's not jump to the conclusion that he's a bad guy. He's trying to do something good for the kids of this community. Thank you.
If there are no other public comments, I would like to close this and move on to the rest of the meeting.
Bob, we have the motion that you made. Do we have a second? We have a second. Okay, let's take a vote.
Just to be clear, review 1, 2, and 3 motions. This is motion number 3.
We are voting on motion number 3 right now.
Solely number 3.
Correct.
Not 1, 2, and 3.
Correct. Just number 3. Mr. Baker.
Yes.
Ms. Cooper.
Yes.
Mr. DiGiacchino.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. McDonald.
No.
Mrs. Santoro.
Yes.
Mrs. Tover.
Yes.
Ms. Virtue. Ms. Birch.
Yes.
Mrs. Lees.
Yes.
I think you have to make the motion now for the rest of the finance items.
Items 1 and 2 under facilities. One is for the calendar, one's for HID.
And a second? Any discussion on those 2 items?
I have some comments on facilities. I guess I don't want to say not to beat a dead horse, but I'm going to beat a dead horse. I want to get back to this student access situation. We've been, I'll say for lack of a better expression, kicking this can down the road for quite a long time. We have people on this board who know people at Whiteford Realtors. I think we need to move on. My suggestion is that we have legal representation at our next finance and facilities meeting, and we talk about a plan of action that we can move forward. I've received estimates from a member of the community that we can get this fence done, we can get the access in for between $30,000 and $40,000, maybe a bit more, but something far, far less than the original estimate we got. I did speak with John Udell, whoever's spoken to people from Whiteford, whatever goes through Whiteford, who owns for members of the public TD Bank property, has to go through him. It hasn't gotten to his desk yet. He knows nothing about it. In fact, he thought this whole student access was done. I met with him and Mike Sullivan, member of the planning board last year. I did learn that, we were going to talk about affirmative action tonight. I did learn that the slope of that access is 14%. ADA compliance says it needs to be 8.33% slope, so that we're not providing for our students with disabilities any access to that student center, whereas the original access does provide for that. I've seen enough. I don't take that. I work full time. I don't stand outside the student or the Burnsville Center and watch the kids as they come down and go back. I did in walking my son's dog. I did see students going back up to the high school. They're going up the dirt hill and then climbing over the guardrail. It's a dangerous situation. I've said it before. I'd like it to appear in the minutes, Ms. Gogan, if it can, because this is a lawsuit waiting to happen. I've watched these kids going up that hill, some kids going down the hill. I do believe, and that's why if we have legal representation in our F&O meeting, we can get firsthand knowledge and we can discuss it, because we need to go ahead with this. And I'm talking about $30,000 is covering a guardrail, 270 feet of fence, cleaning out, de-stumping that area in the back, paving that, putting stone down, paving it, and for another 10, maybe 20, I don't know how much more it would be, but we can get the handicap parking area in the back done as well. And I think we need to move on with that, because I think by allowing the students to walk down that path, they still have to go in the berm area or cross the TD Bank parking lot and then go out to the fence and come back around. And some kids, as a matter of speed, they have a certain amount of time for lunch. If they want to go to Lenny's, they cross that double wide area coming out. Cars are looking and thinking about 202 when they cross that area, or when they get into that area, I believe the crosswalk that is there, if that's safer than if that's safer than the other crosswalk going into that alleyway between Gary's and Chipotle, I'll eat my hat. I don't wear a hat, but I'll buy one and eat it if that's the case. But I think we need to move on this. We've talked about, I know things move slow in government, and we're part of government, I get that, but we're approaching a year and a half on this, and that's just a long time, and it doesn't need to happen. And when this board has a student injury because of the ludicrous situation of kids jumping over fences and going down hills, and if we had a real bad winter, I shudder to think what would happen, but it's very, very frustrating. So I would like to see us move a little bit more forcefully on this. That slope there is not going to happen. It's not ADA compliant. It's not fit for students with disabilities. The other way is, and I think we need to move in that direction.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call. Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiacchino?
Yes.
Mr. Nail?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Mrs. Tover?
Yes.
Ms. Virtue?
Yes.
Ms. Birch? Mrs. Lees?
Yes.
I think it's time for curriculum.
Okay, the Curriculum Committee met on March 12, 2019. Jen Schaffler gave the committee an unofficial update of the outcome of CUSAC. You may be aware of the effort our district put into the preparation for CUSAC's visit, and that thorough preparation served us well. Unofficially, our curriculum documents passed and were approved, as were other elements like professional development, instrumental programs, etc. In short, instruction and program, fiscal, governance, operations, and personnel all earned high scores. Official results will be shown in the near future. The latest draft of the 2019-20 district calendar was approved by our committee. Jen Schaffler showed the committee the March 13th Professional Development Day agenda. It was interesting and informative to see the many learning activities the staff participates in during this special day. Some of the activities included were affirmative action training, CPR training, Power School training, workshops supporting children with disabilities, review of benchmark assessments, as well as other choices. We had a lengthy discussion about the pros and cons of BMS overnight field trips. Our middle school principal, Lisa Garofalo, researched surrounding districts that ran middle school overnight trips to give the committee a sense of how they were run. She also told us about districts that ceased running the overnights. There were no conclusions made at this point, therefore it is still under discussion in curriculum and policy committees. Then Michael Catelli introduced the committee to additional model congresses. Our students currently participate in the Harvard Model Congress, which is the largest congressional simulation conference in the world. It is an opportunity for U.S. students and world students to experience American government firsthand. In addition to the Harvard Model Congress, the Princeton Model Congress could be run. More research is needed to see if any staff would be interested in starting this club. Regarding the update on PARC, the state has decided that the class of 2018-19 can graduate by passing PARC or other tests like SATs or ACT. All field trips were approved by the administration and by this committee. We did not have time for Jen to discuss the computer-based benchmark assessments curriculum proposal. Therefore, it will be on next month's agenda. I would like to move action items 1 through 4 on the agenda and items 1 through 3 on the addendum. Is that right, Bob? Thanks.
Second.
I just had one comment. Since I'm new to this and I looked at the field trips.
Here you go.
So I had one comment. I'm new to this and I looked at the field trips and I was surprised at the amount that children will have to contribute to go on some of the school trips. And I thought it would be great if we could put aside in the budget some money to be able to fund these field trips more adequately because they're good educational opportunities for students, which is what we're supposed to be all about.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. DiGiacchino? Mr. Mail?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Mrs. Tover?
Yes.
Ms. Virtue?
Yes.
Ms. Birch?
Yes.
Mrs. Slees?
Yes.
Personnel policy.
Okay, I'm going to start with personnel. We met on March 12th at 11:30. All members were in attendance. We reviewed the results of the CUSAC audit, preliminary results. The CUSAC auditor reviewed 10 to 12 random teacher files. Substance was adequate, and there were some minor details that needed to get cleaned up, which Dr. Dempsey has already worked with administration and taken steps to address these areas. We continue monthly to review demographic data to evaluate our staffing needs. We're predominantly looking at, right now, kindergarten registrations and teacher resignations. We approved job description updates per CUSAC, which we discussed last month, and we talked about updating the transportation director job description. So I would like to move items 1 through 12 on the agenda. Second? Do you want me to go?
Well, we have one item on the
Go
agenda.
on this one. Okay, so I'd like to move items 1 through 12 on the agenda and 1 through 3 on the addendum. Second? Discussion? I have not yet. I'm gonna do that next. Do you want to do the roll call for personnel before I report out on policy?
All right. Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper? Yes. Mr. DiGiacchino? Mr. Mail?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Mrs. Tover?
Yes.
Ms. Virtue?
Yes.
Ms. Birch?
Yes.
Mrs. Lees?
Yes.
Okay. Next, I'll move on to policy. Same committee attendees. And I am just going to talk about, we're in our second reading of homework regulation 2330 this evening. That is the item on the agenda. However, we did have a lengthy meeting with a lot to be discussed. Janice touched on one of the areas we covered in policy as well, which is changing policy 2340 to allow for overnight field trips in 8th grade. We've had a lot of discussion already on policy. Additionally, we thought it warranted discussion in curriculum. So Ms. Garofalo, the middle school principal, came to policy as well, and Janice touched on the topics that she covered. She has researched several districts that have a long history and continue to do annual overnight field trips to Washington, D.C., and other districts such as ours where they had done them, but then for various reasons have changed more recently to do day trips. And there was a wide variety of reasons. So the districts, okay, sorry. And we've had a lot of discussion about a lot of factors that contribute to changing this policy. We've all agreed that the curriculum value is terrific, but there are also concerns that we have, as well as other topics that need serious consideration. Keeping both our administration, staff, teachers, and students safe while traveling out of district. Technology, both with the technology that our students will bring with them in their hands, as well as the technology of people that we cannot control, that they will encounter on these trips. Obtaining the appropriate number of teachers and parental volunteers to sign up for these trips. Our volunteer, it's been dwindling in the middle school level, and we've had some trouble running some after-school events that only last for an hour. So, taking that into consideration, will we be able to provide enough teachers, administrators, and parents to run one of these trips? Significant fundraising that would go into it. What we are asking our administration and teachers to take on by taking a group of students overnight in that age range in particular. We talked about liability funding. There's a lot of considerations that go into this. So we sought input from our middle school HSA executive team, HSA meeting attendees, and volunteers that are currently running and responsible for the existing 8th grade trip. While the committee believes that there is value from the curriculum perspective, as I said, we are also aware that there are many day trips that we can take as a district that would provide an excellent educational experience for our students. So based on this information, at this point, we're not recommending making a change to this policy. We feel like we're just going to keep the policy as is, and moving forward, we can look at additional or different trips for our 8th graders if we feel that we would like them to be more curriculum based. Moving on, we discussed policy 7510 as they did in Bob's report, 7511. This was the use of school facilities and the use of our athletic field. I think we've covered that topic at this point, so I'm gonna just keep moving forward. Obviously, in policy, we will be discussing that, gathering all the feedback from the various committees, and ultimately making recommendations for changing that policy or not. And then we began to look at our fundraising policies, which Bob also, you kind of stole my thunder on this one, Bob. We looked at the fundraising policies we have. We currently have 4 policies, and the committee agrees that we need to review these policies in details and condense these as appropriate. Additionally, we are in alignment with finance and that we'd like to understand better why our sports teams are fundraising, and that way we can take a look at that from a budget perspective. We did agree that June 1st date, the June 1st date that was discussed in last month's meeting for submission of all fundraising for the following year is too restrictive, and that we will have to look at aligning our dates with the various seasons as we go forward. So this is going to be an ongoing discussion, and we'll be reporting out on it in months to come. We reviewed the 2019-2020 school calendar, and we talked about the changes, and we are ready to move that forward. And then finally, we discussed that the committee is comfortable with our volunteer coaches receiving up to $500 in remuneration. The committee is also okay, and that is as our policy exists now. We also discussed, at this point, we're okay with the 4-hour random student drug testing appeal request, but we do agree that we will need to look at the appeal process in its entirety in more detail as we continue to evaluate this policy over the course of this year. And unfortunately, our discussion with regards to the sustainability policy had to be tabled this month, but will be on the agenda for next month. So I would like to move item 1 on the agenda. Second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Who seconded?
Oh, Nicole.
Janet.
Or Janice.
Who seconded? I seconded.
Janice.
Sorry. Holding the mic.
Yeah, 2 things. It really saddens me and disappoints me to see the policy committee reject an overnight trip to Washington, D.C. for our 8th graders. It's a seminal experience for 8th graders around this country. It's a seminal experience for 1/3 of their classmates that they'll have next year in the high school at Bedminster. And it's been a 30-year seminal experience for our neighbors in Ridge. It's also a seminal experience for the folks in Mendon. So I don't want to get into the chapter and verse as to why we're denying it, but I think it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that we live so close to our nation's capital, yet so many of our students have never been there. And I think it's never been more important than now to get engaged politically. And to provide an opportunity to show that to our children is what we should be doing as educators. We're not the educators, obviously. The educators are wearing red shirts, but you know what I mean. But to me, it's really sad to see us deny that to our students, and that's unfortunate. So I'm really disappointed to see how that's played out. And it's been an issue that I've been working on for years, and we can throw up a lot of reasons why we deny things. And Lord knows most of the issues that you've expressed have more relevance to the high school than to 8th grade. But don't for a moment believe, and I'm trying to say take away overnights for the high school. I'm just saying that those issues, those students will be, if they had that trip in May, 3 months later they'd be in high school and they'd be eligible for an overnight trip. So tremendously disappointed. Second topic is, we've talked a great deal, ad nauseum, about what's going on with our fields. We're going to address it in policy. And what I would encourage the policy committee to do is, as quickly as possible, whatever the right forum is, get together with the parties involved, cut through the issues, and let's come up with a resolution that makes sense for everyone. Now, these guys are under the gun because they've got a season to schedule, right? And so, they've been operating on a set of assumptions for months, and that's unfortunate. So I'm just encouraging, I don't know what the form is going to be, but if there's an interim meeting, if there's a special meeting, if we can bring those people together, for goodness sake, let's bring the parties together, let's clear through all of the noise and get on the same page and do what's right by the programs and by the district. So I just want to encourage you to do that.
Any other discussion? Okay, roll call. Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. DiGiacchino?
Yes.
Mr. Mail?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Mrs. Tover?
Yes.
Ms. Virtue?
Yes.
Ms. Birch?
Yes.
Mrs. Lees?
Yes.
Community relations.
All right, the Community Relations Committee met on March 14th for about 2 hours. We started with a discussion around the field policy, and we all agreed that that needed to go back to policy for updates. We then had a discussion around next steps for the pop-up libraries, and that was to have a meeting on March 15th, which actually did take place with members from the Somerset Hills School District, St. John on the Mountain Episcopal Church, and Burnsville Library. And I'm happy to report that we did have that meeting around next steps, and we do now have a plan forward. Our immediate next steps are to see if the high school can actually build those structures for us, the boxes that we're going to place the books in, and then also to talk to the landowners who own the land where we would actually like to place the 2 boxes. And I think the group agreed that we want to start out with placing 2 of these pop-up libraries in Burnersville. Next, Dr. Dempsey informed the group that CUSAC was over and that we were awaiting the results. The committee was also given a revised copy of the school calendar for next year, and we had a look at that. We were then joined by Colleen Butler, who updated the group on the status of a potential partnership with Amazon, which sounds really exciting. Colleen has spent time speaking with the educational unit at Amazon and was made aware of a program that Amazon has for future engineers called Adhesive. Colleen had to complete the application for the Somerset Hills School District to be included in the program, and at that time was waiting an interview on March 15th. She's hoping to learn more about the type of support that they can provide to our teachers as part of this program, so this will be an ongoing dialogue. Colleen also provided an update to us on the Future Ready Schools initiative. And for those of you who don't know, this initiative is a coalition of the New Jersey Department of Education, the New Jersey School Boards Association, and the New Jersey Institute of Technology. It's really based on work of the National Future Ready Schools and the structure and success of the Sustainable New Jersey for Schools certification program. Colleen shared with the group that this is a certification process which involves 3 phases and will certainly take some time. But the phases include district commitment, school participation, and school certification. So we're going to continue to learn more about how we want to roll out this program in our district, or if we do. Lastly, we were reminded that a small group from the school, from the district, including Dr. Dempsey, Colleen, Jen, myself, we're going to have some upcoming field trips to other school districts to learn about internship programs, and that first visit was made just this past Monday to the Bridgewater Raritan School District. And we have 1 more in April and 1 more in May that we'll conduct. So that concludes the summary of our meeting. I don't have any items to move forward at this time, but I'm happy to take any questions.
In light of everything that's happened here, I don't want to speak for the board, and I know there's been a lot of miscommunication and it's very frustrating, and I don't think any of us ever meant for it to get this crazy, but I have no question in my mind that Mr. Siminow acted in good faith in trying to help this program, and as a teacher, I know in your rights, it's always a big thing, so I do understand that, and hopefully we can get our means of communication to a point where something like this doesn't happen anymore. Toward that end, I would like to, I'd like to see us resurrect the once a year or twice a year meetings with Burnsville so that we could sit down and talk about these kinds of issues, where we sit down in a group and have these discussions. I know there's more to it that we didn't even discuss tonight, and that is there's other issues regarding the fields, but a whole host of issues that we don't have to discuss every issue with me. But I do think at least once a year, maybe twice a year, if we could sit down. We had a large group meeting a year ago or so, and I thought it was beneficial. It got a little, moved in a different direction than I was hoping it would move, but I think anytime you sit down with people and communicate, it's always a good thing. So I would like to see at least twice a year where we sit down and a group of people together and then discuss these issues, maybe plan as a board what issues we would like to discuss and bring up with Burnsville, and they can do the same, and we come with a plan and an agenda, and we can get a lot accomplished. But again, I think it would be a big benefit for all of us.
Kathy, I have a question. I was actually just going to say, Greg, to your point though, I think it was 2 meetings ago, we had talked about having a meeting with the town and the police, and we put it on hold because of the activities with PSAC. So we will definitely put that on the agenda for next month. Okay, so the question about the pop-up library. So you're going, I've asked this a couple of times because I don't remember if we ever approved it as a board. I don't know. Is that something we don't do with community relations? Don't know. So that's one of the things that, because you say you're going to have high school students start to build it, so I would assume it has to be approved by the board, but I could be wrong. Also, the policy that you have in place for the pop-up libraries, for example, what books will go in there, who could, I mean, because I know it's just open, so anybody can put a book, an adult book in, a little kid can come and get the little adult book and read it, you know, I don't know. That's my question. So is there a policy that we have in place? Also, will we have to have insurance for those, when we put those out? Is there insurance for those pop-up libraries if we are putting them out there? Don't know. I'm just asking that for some of us to look in. And how will we manage those once they're out there? That's another question. So those are my questions.
So I'm going to let Jen talk about it.
And you can talk about all those, and you don't have to mention them now, but those are my questions. Unless you have all that now, and we already approved it, and I missed it.
A little bit of information that I can add at this point is that we've begun some conversations with our woodshop teacher, and he felt like this could fit into the curriculum, and they had an opportunity for some students to work on this project and thought this would be a great project to start. So we have to work on next steps with him about what he needs to in order to build these. But that's the information we have now.
Okay, so we're going to build it, but I was asking for the foundation before we build. That's what my questions are.
And then
the books themselves, Kathy can kind of fill in here, but we met with a representative from the Burnsville Public Library, as well as representatives from St. John on the Mountain who are interested in partnering. So the school district's responsibility at this point would be kind of defined just as the construction of these physical spaces, and those organizations are going to handle the actual book part of it.
Then we step out.
Yes,
So,
yes.
So I guess if we construct them, right?
Mhm.
So we're,
And then we pass them off to...
so we're no longer responsible for them once we pass.
Correct.
them.
Correct.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Okay. I would say it's time for public questions and comments on non-agenda items.
Microphone.
Hi, I'm Nancy Calzo. I'm a former board member. I feel your pain. I really do. This is a tough one. So don't let anyone ever tell you, there's a lot of new board members here. Some of you don't know me. I was on the board for a long time. Most of you do know me, but you sort of earned your stripes tonight. And, you know, there's a lot of heated discussions that went on today and a lot of mistakes that were made. But, you know, you have to always keep in mind, I think what Jamie said is that, you know, you're here for the children of the school district. And there's a lot of issues, and I can't believe for 10 years, when I was on the board, Lou was on the board, and Lou was on the board for 20 years. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, these issues don't ever go away. I can't believe that you don't have a passageway for those kids to walk down. It's ridiculous. Greg, you spoke about that beautifully. It's crazy. We're still talking about these fields. You can't take on all the burdens of this town. And there was a lot of mistakes that were made, and I don't know all the details of it, but you have to keep focused on what you have, and I think you all did. You did a great job tonight. It was tough tonight. And, you know, it's a lot of tough issues that goes on here, but, you know, I really did appreciate it, and I wish I could have said it, but it wasn't an agenda item, board recognition, so I'm saying at the end of the meeting, I did feel your pain, but I have to say one thing, and I know Greg would really appreciate this. in particular. But the reason I'm here today in town, because I went to my my 6-month oncology visit. And so today is this month is colorectal cancer month. And it's recognition of that. I've had it twice, a stage 4 cancer survivor so far. Now, is this wood or plastic? And so the one thing I could do, all the things you discussed today, they're not life and death. They're important. What is life and death is going to get a colonoscopy when you're 45 years old. Insurance, no matter what kind of insurance you have now, they pay for it. You can get a colonoscopy, and it saves your life. It really does. If I would have had a colonoscopy 5 years earlier, I wouldn't have gone through all the things that I've gone through. Darlene sat through I sat through negotiations, having chemotherapy, and it wasn't pretty. And you have kids, and you just don't really want to go through it. So everything you discussed tonight was important. It's important to go get a colonoscopy. Hopefully you all look like a lot of young ones, so you might not even be 45 yet. But if you are 45 or older, you should be going to get it. It's colorectal cancer month, and don't forget that, because that truly is a life or death issue. And good luck, and hopefully I'm not coming to any more of these meetings, because this was tough, but good luck to all of you, and you're doing a good job. It is appreciated, and even people who yell at you, when they really think about it, it's sort of tough. You don't get, this is a thankless job, and I'm not going to talk anymore because I'm retired, but good luck.
Thank you.
Sam Frenda, Stone Fence Road in Bernardsville. I am speaking as a parent and actually as the co-president of the Bernardsville Middle School at HSA. And in the context of the conversation regarding teacher contracts and a great deal of conversation in reference specifically, I know it was voted on, but to the 8th grade overnight field trip, I just have to voice that although there's great curricular value in something like that, and it would be a wonderful opportunity for our students, I think comparing our district to other districts who have been doing this for 10, 20, 30 years, who are not apples to apples with us, who are larger districts, have greater staff, greater funding, more stipend available, and have a greater volunteer pool. I think for anyone who would be suggesting that we do this as a parent of an 8th grade student and as a volunteer who continues to step up time and time again when there is no one else that does it, I would like to say that for anyone in favor of this, please come and talk to us at our meetings and tell us that you will chair this, that you will do the work, that you will somehow make our teachers feel secure that chaperoning a trip like this is something reasonable, because I'll tell you, I wouldn't send my 8th grader on it, and I sure as heck would not ask any of these teachers to chaperone them, no matter how good they are, regardless if they're going to 9th grade next year, and those trips are then allowed at the high school. I know these 8th graders, and there is not a shot that my kid would be going on that, and I would not ask our teachers, and I would not ask our parents to chaperone something like that. But again, I'm saying we don't have, to plan a trip to New York City is so out of hand and is such a disaster. To think of planning that to Washington, D.C. and to find the volunteer capacity is just, it's just not reasonable. And I'm speaking, I understand that everybody has two sides, but I'm speaking from a great deal of experience. I'm talking from countless hours of volunteerism. It's not reasonable. It's just, in this district at this time, it's not reasonable. Tim, I fully understand where you're coming from, but I'm just telling you logistically and from a volunteer perspective, I understand the value in it. I understand how important it is to be engaged. I have a child who writes emails to senators, so I can empathize with all of that, but the logistical far outweighs that. And like I said, I have an 8th grader. I know the current 8th grade class. They're lovely. No way. So it's just...
With all due respect, it's a policy issue.
That's great. I'm giving my input as a parent and as a volunteer.
As you've been directing your comments to me, I'm just saying, with all due respect, it's a policy issue.
But you spoke out on it quite vehemently.
I did, and I'm just responding.
No, I understand it's policy, but I'm not understanding. Okay, you spoke very passionately, and now I'm speaking very passionately about why it's not a good idea. And I'm on the front lines doing this. So I think it's fair. Additionally, I know it's late, and I waited a long time to say this, but my fourth grader plays lacrosse. My husband coaches fourth grade Somerset Hills lacrosse. I don't know much about the scheduling from that perspective. However, I will say as a parent, dropping my son off and seeing my husband coach, however things are being scheduled, the gym, the lower gym, was triple booked one night. 2 of which were Somerset Hills lacrosse teams, and then a random soccer team that no one knew where they came from or who they were was also scheduled to be in that same gym. And they started touring the school looking for an open place to practice. They were just wandering around our high school looking for a facility. So taking all of the emotion and everything out of it, there's something wrong. And I just wanted to note that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sit back is my last time. Donna Coombs, Tennis Road. So just really a couple of things. I do think the risks outweigh the benefits for an overnight field trip. I know I'm a dinosaur and I don't have young kids, but honestly, I'm grateful because I wouldn't want to have kids your ages right now. I think it's just a very frightening world we live in. But that's just my opinion. I do want to say that Mr. Mack is right about the 2% cap. You don't have to do that. Yes, you can apply for a waiver. But at risk with applying for a waiver comes the ability to vote. So the public then has the ability to vote down your budget, which, okay, everyone says, so who cares? They voted it down. So the effects of that are, that budget now goes to 3 town councils who are allowed to cut anything they want out of your budget. They don't get to touch teacher salaries and health benefits, but they get to cut any other discretionary part of your budget. So I would very seriously think about never, ever, ever going out for a waiver. And remember, most of the people that vote don't have kids in school. So chances are, with their property values decreasing, they are not going to want your property tax budget going up. So just keep that in mind. So yes, he's right, but 2% is where you should be forever. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I know it's been a long and rough night. So we have another one.
I just want to run and say, I'm Alice Struble and I'm like biggest Tom girl ever, and I want to make 3 points about field usage. So the new football field, Veterans Field, can be used by football players and football teams if you get creative. Northwestern University played at Wrigley Field, and they've shared, like, if they all use the same end zone, then we might be able to make it work. That's documented in the New York Times article, but that's just my creative opinion. If you played a game and if it was the Dallas Cowboys versus the Pittsburgh Steelers and both teams used the same end zone, and that was the ground rules agreed upon before the game, you might be able to make it work. And we need some creative solutions because our fields are in demand by a lot of places. As a Somerset Hills Little League volunteer T-ball softball coach for the girls softball team, we don't get to use Kiwanis. We have to go out to PPAC. It's just how women's sports have been since I was in high school. Boys swimming got to use this pool first. They got first choice. They won more championships. That's just the way it is. So let's try and be fair when considering everyone who wants to use the facilities. And I don't want to really talk about lacrosse because I don't know too much about it, but Mary Claire Windish and Sam Frenda seem to know more about it. And because like teams are in motion and using both nets during a game, then maybe they can't use it. But again, I'm sorry, as you know, a Board of Education, you're dealing so much with
extracurricular field, but again, I want to thank you for your time and service. Thank you.
Okay. Second for adjournment? Okay. I want to thank everybody for a long and hard night. Thank all of you up here for the countless hours that you are putting in. It's tough sometimes, and for all of us, hang in there. Adjourned.